joint regular meeting of the Marin City Council and the Marin City Council acting as successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency of the City of San Bernardino. I call to order this open session. Good evening and welcome, and thank you again for joining us tonight. At this time, I will ask Councilman Fred Charette. Sir, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, thank you. Please all stand as we pledge to our flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Charette. Appreciate it. At this time, I will recognize our city clerk. Ms. City Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Here.
Councilmember Figueroa.
Here.
Councilmember Charette.
Here.
Councilmember Ben Reynoso.
Here.
Councilmember Kelvin.
Here.
Councilmember Alexander.
Here.
And Mayor Valdivia.
Here. Thank you, Ms. City Clerk. I want to recognize the newly elected council members for the City of San Bernardino. At approximately 5:30 p.m., we recognize in special session Councilmember Juan Figueroa of the 3rd Ward for a 4-year term, Councilman Ben Reynoso of the 5th Ward for a 4-year term, Councilmember Kim Kelvin for the 6th Ward, and Councilmember Damon Alexander of the 7th Ward. Congratulations, and we welcome you tonight to your first meeting.
Thank you.
Let's move on to our city manager, and Mr. City Manager, if you please provide an update.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the staff, we do want to welcome the new council members, and very much look forward to working with all of you going forward. Tonight, we'll just start with a quick update about a few things that are happening in the city. First of all, we've been working on some street projects around town. You're going to start seeing some progression of improvements around town. We had approved 8. We have completed now 6 of the 8. They were approved on September 16th. Now we just completed 5th Street between E and H, and also Crestview between 19th Street and Highland Avenue. So as you travel around the city, you're going to start seeing steady progression of upgrades to the travel ways around town. Finance, we don't usually talk about finance too much, but we do have some good news. We just finished an audit of fiscal year 2019-2020. The results came in, and for the 2nd year in a row, we have an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion from the auditors of our performance in fiscal year 2019-2020. So that's really good news. The water department just renewed the lease. The Little League Western Region headquarters up in near the Vertimont area is really a jewel for the city, and we just renewed the lease with them. There's an initial extension of 10 years with a couple of with 5 2-year options to extend. So effectively, it's a 20-year extension of their lease. They've been here, by the way, since 1969. So it's a real credit to the city that we have been able to host that facility and their annual events for such a long time. Human resources, COVID is with us still, even though we have started the vaccination program, and in fact, the first vaccinations in San Bernardino County happened today, which is cause for celebration. But at the same time, we also have to be aware of the ongoing presence of the disease here. Human Resources has arranged with the County of San Bernardino a free COVID testing event at the Court Square parking lot. Is taking place on December 21st from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Animal services, we'd like to talk about them periodically because there's always something interesting going on over there. Well, right now we're improving the cat sanctuary. We are basically replacing the heating and air conditioning system there to ensure that the residents of the cattery are well taken care of and are served with good, clean, fresh air, which has not necessarily always been the case in the past. Finally, outside of the city itself, it's important to recognize things that are happening in town that impact us in a more global sense. Philanthropy has been growing in this region. We've been getting a fair amount of attention, and so we have 2 different efforts that have been mounted that have resulted in a pretty significant investment on the part of philanthropy in our region. One, the Inland Empire Community Foundation, not that long ago, received a $2.7 million grant from the James Irvine Foundation, which is dedicated to services in in and around the city of San Bernardino exclusively. And that's an important investment that the Irvine Foundation is making here in our community, looking into things like social equity and social justice. And there's going to be, I'm sure, some important outcomes from the work that they are coordinating through that the Irvine Foundation is coordinating through the Inland Empire Community Foundation. Also, the Time for Change Foundation just received a $1.25 million grant from the Bezos Day One Families Fund. That's another important investment in our town. I think what these indicate is that they're important. That important entities are paying attention here, and it's a positive sign for San Bernardino that we're seeing that type of attention being paid to our city. So with that, Mayor, that wraps up my report, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager. We appreciate the report. Also, you'll have that. I think you've already received that in writing and much of the information. So council members, avail yourself of that. This time, let's move on to our appointment process. At this time, I invite a motion to approve the appointments to various regional boards. Is there a motion?
I'd like to push forward. I'd like to push forward my own recommendations. If I have this, do I have this time to explain those list of candidates?
I'd also like to make a statement regarding the appointments.
All right.
I'll second the motion by Councilmember
Well-
Sanchez.
Well, hold on.
Well, here, let me.
First off, I ask that we be respectful of one another, and please let's not interrupt or crosstalk. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Yes. So for item 1, I want to go down the list 1 through 5 for the recommended appointments, and then bring forward my recommendations. So first, approve the appointment of Councilmember Juan Figueroa to the San Bernardino International Airport Authority Board of Directors as a voting member, and then Fred Charette as the alternate. City Clerk, are you taking notes? Because it's going to be a long one. 2, approve the appointment of Councilmember Theodore Sanchez and Ben Reynoso to the Inland Valley Development Agency as voting members, and then Fred Charette as the alternate. And then number 3, approve the appointment of Councilmember Damon Alexander to the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority as an alternate. Number 4, approve the appointment of Councilmember Kimberly Calvin as the County Homeless Partnership, referred to as the Interagency Council on Homelessness, as a voting member, and the same as the vice chair of the subcommittee. And then finally, approve the appointment of Councilmember Sandra Ibarra to the Omnitrans Board of Directors as an alternate. That is my motion.
Okay,
Do I have a second?
Councilmember, you understand that we have a floor motion and you've altered it significantly. I've attempted to call you on that and you never returned my phone call.
I'll second his motion, Mayor.
Open for discussion.
Yes, this is really important. This really reflects the varied talents and life experience of the whole council. Every council member is going to have an opportunity to be on a regional board with the list that I presented tonight. We get to use, for example, Fred Charette's a long history of serving both on the airport board as well as the IVDA board. His talents will be at the disposal of the city when one of the voting members, either myself, Ben Reynoso, or Councilmember Ben Reynoso, or Councilmember Juan Figueroa, are absent from either the IVDA board or the airport board. Kimberly Calvin, I know, has had a very long history of community service, and this is one of the major hurdles. Homelessness is one of the major hurdles that we have to tackle, and I think her talents are tailored to really going after this issue. Sandra Ibarra walks and knows more people who walk to work than just about anyone else I know. She would serve well to be an alternate on the Omnitrans board. But again, this list that I presented allows every member of this board to also speak their mind on a regional board, and that's why I think
Thank you, Councilman.
I'm asking for your support. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd also like to make a statement, please, Mayor. Mayor, you're muted.
The mayor has the appointing powers to these boards. I've consulted with within the provisions of the Brown Act and have sought their input. And as it stands, what's written, the motion for approval, what's before you. Now, Councilmember Sanchez has amended that. I think there's some strategic opportunities for what's as written, and that would be my strong encouragement to this council that we continue to move forward in the direction of what's stated and before you.
May I make a statement, please, Mayor?
Go ahead.
First of all, Councilman Sanchez, I truly appreciate you bringing forth the amendment. As you mentioned, your amendments would give every opportunity for every board member to serve. It is disheartening to take the dais tonight with this appointment list. This list I find to be very sexist, racist, marginalizing, and it definitely does not represent equity. In this day and time, when our newly elected Vice President Kamala Harris has been elected as the first female Vice President of this country, of this nation, I find it to be very disheartening that Mayor Valdivia, you would choose to not appoint a female to any of these boards. Your ability to continue to show that women are not valued is not going to be accepted on this council, in this city any longer. Tonight, I am requesting that you reconsider your appointments, that you speak loudly right now to all the females, all the women of this city, to show them that you do value our ability to serve, our ability to lead. If you do not, you will be sending a very, very loud signal to the women, to all the voters, all the female voters of this city, that you do not value the women of this city, nor do you value the elected women of this city, nor do you value the women that sit on your city council. I find this to be very disheartening that I would have to address this type of issue on my very first night of being appointed to this council, to having been elected by the people of San Bernardino, to believe that we are still living in these times. I am requesting that you reconsider your appointment, sir.
Okay, thank you, council member. That thought never crossed my mind, and I completely certainly don't adhere to any of that, but thank you for your comments. Councilman Charette.
Thank you. I think what Councilman Sanchez has done, first of all, I guess a point of order is that an amendment or is it a substitute motion? And I don't know.
Chair would recognize a substitute motion on that.
Well, under appointments, I don't know if this requires a motion, and this becomes a substitute motion, which apparently it is. It sounds to me like it's a substitute motion, and it has a second. So, and I think Councilwoman, Calvin has indicated exactly what I think is wrong with the appointments that have been made by the mayor, and Councilmember Sanchez has, I think, really fairly well addressed all of them, all of those concerns. And so with that, I maybe need some legal on whether this is a motion or a substitute motion or what.
Councilman Charette. I'll recognize it as a substitute motion. It's fair. He's won a second. So,
okay.
What do you have?
So then I would call for the question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilman Figueroa, you're recognized, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding that especially when it comes to the airport and the IVDA, the areas of the city that it affects the most really tend to be the first and the third wards. I mean, those are the two areas of the city that are much more affected by some of these agencies. And so I can see the logic in and choosing those. The other ones, of course, I don't know what the mayor's logic was behind some of the other ones. With the homeless partnership, I mean, I am a social worker, and I actively work with a lot of homeless folks currently. So that to me would actually make sense. But, it's my understanding that these are appointments, that come from the mayor's office. When a council member recommends or appoints somebody to a commission, we don't start making motions to say we don't like that person in that seat. I motion to have a different resident of the city to take that commission appointment. So it's just, that's how I see it. I'm not sure what his thought process was with some of the others, but as far as I'm concerned, the airport and the IVDA have a much bigger impact on the first and third wards. And that's my understanding as far as those two agencies.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. We'll open it up to any final comments here. And
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have a final comment.
Councilmember Calvin, please go ahead.
Councilman Figueroa, I don't see why or how it is necessary for all of the men on the council to be doubled and tripled up on these commissions. As to, if you are the better person to be served on any one of these, it does not mean that you have to serve on all 4 or 3 out of the 4, 3 out of the 5. We need to spread the wealth. Equity is involved here. You are with this current recommendation, it is clearly sending a message that the mayor does not feel that the women on this council are valuable enough, comparable enough, capable enough to serve on any of these commissions. I don't know how you would not see that. And I would beg to ask all of the my male colleagues on this council, do you not agree that this is very problematic for every woman in this city? Women deserve more. The women of San Bernardino deserve more than this. So I don't see, sir, how you would just continue to want to go with this recommendation and leaving out Councilwoman Ibarra and myself, who bring a wealth of information and knowledge and integrity to this council. I'm still begging for the reconsideration.
Okay, Councilmember Calvin, I appreciate your comments. However, I think it is projection, and in our rules of conduct, we don't somehow malign individuals' intentions or motives. So I'll call your attention to reading the code of conduct. Mr. Charette, go ahead, sir.
Yeah,
I would love to read the code. Excuse me.
Calvin, you're out of order.
I know that.
Excuse
me, sir. Excuse me.
Ms. Calvin,
Code of conduct, those things have not, we just received that document yesterday.
Okay.
So I'm going to need some time in order to read that. But I was addressing Councilman Figueroa, and I was not trying to malign anyone. But what I am saying
directly, you.
What I am saying is that I, on my first day of sitting on this council, do feel that I am not, the women on this council are not appreciated and should have been appointed to at least, you have appointed 0% women. You had 100% of those votes, and you have appointed none of us. That is not, we're not going to take that. We're not going silent with that, sir. It's sending a very loud message, Mayor.
We can have a personal conversation about it, Ms. Calvin.
No, we don't need to have a personal conversation. It needs to be held right here in council.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Calvin. Mr. Charette.
My only comment, first of all, I did call for the question, I think, and unless there's further discussion, I'll do that. But as far as the first and the third wards being most impacted, I couldn't disagree more. Certainly the airport is in that, but that is a regional airport, and it has nothing to do with a ward. It is a benefit to the entire city. And to the entire region. So to think that representation should come from the wards that it actually sits in, with all due respect, Council Member Figueroa, I can't agree with that in the least. It's a regional thing, just as most of these committees that we're talking about. So again, I would call for the question on the substitute motion.
Okay, Councilmember Charette, thank you, sir, for your insight. Historically, the mayor has always had the appointing powers to these boards. It's been kind of historical. precedent, but we will take that amendment from Councilmember Sanchez for the second by Councilmember Ibarra. And Ms. City Clerk, would you please call the roll on that substitute motion?
Mayor, if I can please get clarification on who made the first motion.
Councilmember Sanchez with the second by Councilmember Ibarra.
So it's not a substitute motion?
It is.
It is. Yes, it is.
So who made the original motion?
The original.
You did, Councilman.
And I made the original motion and the substitute motion?
No.
The original, hold
Yeah,
on.
the amended motion.
Council members, please, you're out of order. Councilmember Ibarra, Councilmember Charette, please mute your mic. Councilman Sanchez, the motion was as printed. You have now substituted and amended it, so I am considering that a substitute motion. The clerk will call the roll on it, please.
Mayor, who made the original, who made the motion on the original? Who moved the original?
It was not moved. It was not moved, Ms. City Clerk. Mr. Sanchez has now amended the original motion, and so now it's a substitute motion.
Can we please have clarification on exactly what the substitute motions are? One more time. Let's read those out and then let's vote.
Okay, Ms. Rocha, would you please clarify what we're voting on?
Okay, Mayor, Councilmember Sanchez's motion was to approve the appointment of Councilmember Figueroa to the San Bernardino International Airport Authority Board of Directors as a voting member, and Councilmember Damon Alexander as an alternate.
No. Fred
Incorrect.
Charette as the alternate.
Fred. Okay, please proceed.
Approve the appointment of council members Damon Alexander and Juan Figueroa to the Inland Valley. Give me a second. I'm sorry, I have the wrong notes. Give me
I
a
can
second.
go ahead and repeat it. That's fine.
Councilmember,
Go ahead and do it.
let me do that. No, thank you. I'll do it. Approve the appointment of Councilmember Sanchez and Councilmember Reynoso to IVDA as voting members and Councilmember Charette as an alternate. Third, to approve the appointment of Councilman Charette to the San Bernardino County Transit Authority as an alternate.
Damon Alexander.
Damon Alexander as it. Okay, thank you. And four, to approve the appointment of Councilmember Kim Kelvin to San Bernardino County Homeless Partnership. And five, to approve the appointment of Councilmember Sandra Ibarra to the Omnitrans Board of Directors as an alternate.
And number one, what was number one again?
Genevieve, did you get that?
Yes,
So
Councilmember Figueroa and then Fred Charette as the alternate.
Yep. Right. Okay, call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
No.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelvin,
Yes.
okay, and Councilmember Alexander.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 6-1.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our presentations portion of tonight's meeting. I want to recognize our Paula Beauchamp. Paula, there you are, from San Bernardino County Transit Authority. On behalf of the Mayor and City Council honoring Paula Beauchamp, we have a special proclamation for you and for your hard work here. Whereas Paula Beauchamp has had a distinguished career for more than 20 years of public and private sector experience with the California Department of Transportation District 8 and over 12 years with the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. And whereas Paula's contribution of service to the greater San Bernardino community have been exemplary, her leadership efforts in securing and overseeing the Mount Vernon Viaduct design and reconstruction project conforms to modern safety standards, preserving its historical connection to our community. And whereas Paula continues to perform above and beyond the call of duty, setting a high standard of dedication and commitment for future generations of transportation professionals, ensuring that this project proceeds to construction. And whereas through her individual efforts, negotiating resolutions to complex funding challenges, by the way, we know all about that, Paula, thank you, to complete the financial packages for a critical project on the west side of San Bernardino. Paula has been recognized numerous times for leadership in transportation, including receiving the Woman of the Year from the Women in Transportation Symposium Inland Empire Chapter. And whereas because of Paula's tremendous efforts to bring the 230 million Mount Vernon Viaduct project to the city of San Bernardino, and her long-standing service and stalwart commitment to transportation in our county, it is truly appropriate for our city council to recognize her contributions to our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the San Bernardino Mayor and Council do hereby recognize, thank, honor, and commend Paula Beauchamp as one of our more valued partners in the delivery of a better city of San Bernardino, dated this 16th day of the month of December 2020. And it's all signed by all of our council members. With that, Paula, I really do admire you very much. You've been a true professional and always very diligent in this Mount Vernon Viaduct. Every time I call, you have answers, and you're clearly concerned about the safety aspects as well as the future construction project. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, Ms. Beauchamp, and welcome.
Well, thank you. This is quite a surprise. I was expecting something else, but I did wonder why my boss was watching. You know, I have to say, I'm so glad you said I only have 20-year career, but I actually have a lot more than that. But, you know, the residents in the city of San Bernardino, in the county, but specifically the city, have always been great to me throughout my career. And no matter which business I visited, they've just treated me with such respect and kindness. And so I feel like this is a little bit of giving back. Also, you know, this project is hugely important to me personally. You know, I worked when I was at Caltrans on the 215 through part of that, and then coming to SBCTA or Sandbag, we actually built the 215 and corrected the errors that were made by previous engineers in the 50s. And so we've restored, you know, equity, you know, in the city. And so now with this bridge, I feel that we will have a long-lasting facility for the city of San Bernardino's residents and businesses. Thank you for this opportunity. You're right, it has been the challenge of my life, but I'm so glad that it's moving along. So thank you. And thank you, Ray, for your support throughout this. You know, without you being back there and pulling in Eloise Reyes and others to back us, you know, on this, it's just been fabulous to have such support. So thank you.
Very good. Also joining us, I'd like to recognize Ray Wolf. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Do you have a few comments?
I just want to thank you personally, Mr. Mayor, and the council, and the city manager, Rob Field, for recognizing Paula. I can tell you 3 years ago, I was in front of the council and begging the council to allow our organization actually to take control of this project to make sure that it actually was completed. And at the time, we committed that we would have it under construction by the end of this year, by December 31st of 2020. Paula and her team, under her leadership, actually delivered it to construction much earlier than that. And that's going to be a tremendous benefit to the city for many decades to come. This is a bridge that needs to be replaced. It needed to be replaced 20 years ago. And so, Paula, you've done a fantastic job here. And I appreciate the council and the mayor and the city manager for recognizing the tremendous effort that she has put forth. Now we've got a struggle ahead of us. It's going to be a long construction process. But keep your eye on the ball. The end product is going to be fantastic, and the community will appreciate it for a long time. Paula, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, I believe there is a actual presentation, so we'll hand that over to, is it Ray or Paula?
I'm going to let Paula take the lead on that. This is her project.
Very good.
All right. There we go. Well, sorry about this. I'm a little disheveled here. So this presentation is about the Mount Vernon Avenue Bridge project, a bridge that was built in 1934. It served the community for 86 years. In 2004, the city began working on the environmental phase of the project after the first time that the state came out and inspected the bridge and found some deficiencies. So moving forward to where we are now, in front of you, you see some renderings. We are planning to rebuild this bridge. It will be completely to today's standards. In fact, the lower picture shows you'll have standard lanes, standard bicycle lanes, and standard sidewalks for all of the pedestrians to use. The aesthetics are currently being designed, and so these renderings are just a depiction. We're working on the design, and the intent is to match the historic features of the bridge that exist now. And so, we look forward to delivering this important facility to the San Bernardino residents and businesses so that they can have a safe, reliable trip north to south in the city, San Bernardino. Next slide, please. And advance once, please. As I mentioned, the environmental process was actually completed by the city. When we took it over, we simply had to update it via a document called the Supplemental Environmental. And if you advance again, and between then and where we are now, we've procured the necessary engineers to develop the procurement documents for our design builder. And then also we've gone through the procurement and have awarded the contract to a design builder in May. None of this could be possible on this quick pace without the tireless and dedicated support of your city staff, who assisted us in every way possible to get to this point. Please advance. And so, since we are preparing to close the bridge to traffic, we have had quite an extensive effort. And what I'd like to do is introduce Marissa Trouts to discuss with you the public outreach that we've performed so far.
Thank you so much, Paula. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Marissa Campos Trouts. I am the community liaison for the Mount Vernon Avenue Bridge project. Our team has been working with the community, local stakeholders, city staff, and partner agencies, among others, for over the past year, in fact, and that did help us to pivot to more virtual outreach tools at the beginning of the year at the onset of the pandemic. So that experience face-to-face with stakeholders really helped us to be able to continue our efforts seamlessly over the last several months as we've educated and prepared the community for not only the start of construction on the project, but also the closure of the bridge and what that means for their daily lives, getting to and from home, the market, church, work, etc. On the screen, you see a few of the tools that we have utilized to inform the community, including our email blast. We have a database of over 300 local stakeholders, and that's continuing to grow every week. Few weeks ago, we also distributed 5,000 door hangers to local residents and businesses. Those were both in English and Spanish, letting people know that the bridge would be closing in the coming weeks and how to reach our team for more information. In addition, at the end of this week, we'll be doing another round of canvassing, again, to that area of 5,000 residents and businesses immediately adjacent to the bridge. And that next piece will include specific information for pedestrians, bicyclists, and the disabled who walk or travel across the bridge. And we've included information about the partnership with Omnitrans and the complimentary bus service that will be provided for those folks so that they have a convenient way to travel to the other side of the bridge once it is closed. In addition, we will also be offering partnership to local businesses to display project information, posters. We've had conversations with local business owners, and they want to have information at the ready for their customers to also encourage them that they are open during construction and make them aware of all of the tools that we are providing to keep them informed of the status of the project and of construction. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions later if there are any.
Okay, thank you very much, Marissa and Paula, for the presentation. We'll open up to council members.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I apologize. I was going to hand it right back to Paula. I just wanted to end my portion of the presentation.
All right, very
My
good.
apologies.
Sorry for my
Thank you.
interruption. Paula.
Okay, please advance the slide. I'll make this quick. So as we move forward through closing the bridge and slowly disassembling the bridge elements, we will also concurrently or afterwards start design of the new bridge. And you will see work in the rail yard because we are performing preparatory work that will allow us to access the work area within the rail yard. Please advance. One more time. Okay, and all of that is an effort to get to 2022 where we will actually start constructing the new bridge. That construction is expected to last 2 years. With that, what I'd like to do is introduce you to Henry Stoltz. Henry Stoltz is actually a resident of the city of San Bernardino, and he is going to be overseeing the construction of the bridge. And so, Henry, could you come on board? And please
yes,
advance the slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Please advance the slide.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. So yes, we are on track. We are moving well on the project. The project is progressing, and we are expected to close the bridge next week. The structure will be take approximately 6 months to remove. This is a methodical disassembly of the structure. And next slide, please. With the closure of the bridge, we will be setting up a detour. Next slide, please. And this detour is shown here and will run toward the east, both on 5th and 2nd Streets. Next slide, please. And as Paula mentioned, after the bridge is removed, BNSF is going to be doing some work building new tracks and facilities necessary to accommodate the construction of the new bridge. This will take approximately 18 months. After that 18 months, the new bridge will begin construction. This is estimated to start July 2022, and we expect to be complete with the project March 2024. With the possibility of opening the bridge to traffic earlier toward the end of 2023 is our hope and expectation. So this completes our presentation, and we welcome any questions.
Okay, are you guys really done?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Open it up to council members. Councilmember Barr.
It's just one question. This was a question brought up by several community members in our city. They're asking if they will have an opportunity to get a piece of that bridge, the old one that you're tearing down, since it is part of history and a lot of people hold it dear to their hearts. So that's for the public viewers. And that's for you guys.
Yeah, well, we can make an arrangement to have that happen if you would like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Otherwise, we thank you, Paula. And again, thank you for all your hard work and your collaboration, and especially the community outreach.
Well, thank you. I mean, it takes a team, so we all did this together.
Very good. All right, thank you. Moving on to item of tonight, consideration is a public comments portion. Ms. City Clerk, please proceed with public comments.
Just one moment, I'm having some technical difficulties.
Okay, Miss City Clerk, why don't we do this? We'll come back to you. Just give me a, go ahead.
Mayor,
Yep.
Jillian will be sharing her screen.
Okay. Are we ready to proceed with public comments?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Paul Sanborn here. About 2 years ago or somewhere around there when we had meetings on 2nd and E for the council meetings, et cetera, whatever. If you can remember back then, there was one night that I literally we had all the dog and cat lovers down there talking about the dog pound. And I brought it up for the fact that Mrs. Bezos, which is Amazon's wife to the owner of Amazon, that if they went to her, they could probably get the $20 million to rebuild that dog pound. Anyhow, evidently, I guess nobody ever thought that that would ever happen. Anyhow, the reason I'm calling today is my hat is off to the lady, Kim Carter. She got $1,250,000 grant from those people. You know, hey, congratulations, Miss Carter. I'll tell you, at least somebody knows how to step up to the plate. Other than that, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Goodbye.
Yes, good evening. This is Thomas Fleming. This is for the open session. I just wanted to congratulate all the city council members that got in there recently. And I hope that, you know, they're not from the pharmaceutical industry, as the mayor is. And I hope they can get them out of there. You know, and I hope they care for the residents of San Bernardino. Because as you know, the mayor did work for Merck, which is a pharmaceutical company, and their main drug is for diabetes. If you notice in San Bernardino, we have a lot of 7-Elevens, a lot of gas station, little mini marts and donut shops here. So we have a lot of diabetes patients here in San Bernardino. So it makes sense that our mayor did work for those companies. So he's making quite a bit of money through that. I hope you guys can boot him out of there, because we don't need, you know, that. Obviously right now during the COVID thing, big pharmaceutical, you know, tyrannical event. So they're all enjoying it. All the mayors across the country who worked for pharmaceutical companies, they were all applauding and partying all, you know, throughout the COVID season. So I hope two of you have a heart and can get actual normalcy back going in San Bernardino. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good evening. This is Harry Hatch, resident of San Bernardino, 7th Ward. First off, I would like to congratulate the new members of the council and hope you all have the ability to understand what your responsibilities really are. I wish you luck, and I mean that. Anything that I can do, I will be here to try to help you. However, you know, there's a lot of things going on, and you need to look at the charter. You need to make yourself available to the charter and read it and understand it so you know what your job is. Your job is to represent, and to represent the city of San Bernardino, not represent anyone or anything specifically, but the entire city and the members. Thank you very much for your time. Harry Hatch, 7th Ward.
Hello. This phone call is in support of the Travel Center, which is, I believe, on the agenda for tonight. And this is the Travel Center North End San Bernardino up off Palm. My name is Andy, and I am an owner of a business around the corner. I started Package Depot a year ago, and I'm a FedEx UPS postal store. We need the travel center in our area. Currently, I have issues with large trucks that will park in our plaza, blocking traffic, blocking aisles, and they also will come in and park, get something to eat, and then they want to nap in the truck for an hour. And it creates traffic congestion, and it blocks visibility for my storefront. Sometimes they'll actually park out on the street, either in the center left turn lane, or they'll park along the curb, which is marked no parking both directions, blocking the bicycle lane and part of the lane of travel. When you go to exit Kendall Plaza, you'll have bad visibility because you can't see around the trucks, and one of these days we're going to have a bad accident. I also know that we need businesses in San Bernardino. The North End desperately needs businesses. With each business, it brings additional good traffic and customers to our area. The business will bring in additional tax revenues, which our city desperately needs. It will increase the property tax base significantly. Sales tax generated from the sale of the gasoline would be nice to keep in San Bernardino rather than people going to outside of the area. A third item that is important would be that it is going to provide additional options for food. As a resident of the North End up here and the business owner, we need additional options for places that we can eat. If you have any questions, I can be reached at Package Depot, 909-804-2263. Thank you for considering this phone call. Bye.
Hello, this is Eric Sanchez, resident of San Bernardino in the 5th Ward for about 16 years. Also a business owner and member of San Bernardino Chamber of Commerce in the leadership group last year for about 3 years. But I'm speaking as a resident. Please approve, or actually already approved, 5-2 development on Palm and Kendall and start construction as soon as possible. It would keep the truckers safe, keep them in our neighborhood, generate a lot of revenue for restaurants, convenience store, and a lot of gas station. I was so excited I even posted this on Facebook teasingly, like, oh, well, truckers, maybe it's kind of like that movie Over the Top, Sylvester Stallone. All you need is a world's arm wrestling competition. But I was looking and waiting for 16 years. I mean, it's better than nothing. Right now, it's just dirt. I remember Henry Nickel visited my office, and because he's a part of the 5th Ward, was asking is there anything need or suggestions. I was told him we need to generate revenue and more commercial business, and he was looking into it. I mean, I know he was complaining about traffic. I'd rather walk 1 mile than drive to Victoria Gardens or downtown San Bernardino. We do need a hangout spot, and I'm just concerned that I want this done as soon as possible. I'm excited. Hopefully it gets built sooner than later. But yeah, I don't mind the traffic. I want to see more commercial business on here in our 5th Ward. It's supposed to be the nice area. It could be homeless around here, but maybe they can get a job at the future restaurant. But I believe this is a closed session in the meeting, but I want this done. I'm excited, but I just want this more commercial in the area. Other than that, yeah, as a resident here, I want to see this done. Thank you. I think that's 2 minutes, but I apologize for the stutter. But first time doing this over the phone, but I hope this gets recorded. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Brown, and I'm calling for Hardy Brown, a 6th Ward resident. He wanted me to make the following comments for him. Due to his condition, he has to have someone do it for him. Congratulations are in order for Kimberly Calvin, Ben Reynoso, and Damian Alexander as newly elected members of the City Council. As a former elected official, my advice is always remember why you ran involved in your decision-making. Even though I voted against Measure S, I want to commend the citizens who did because it will provide you with the money to do positive things for the city. For your information, I served on a committee that put forth Measure Z to raise taxes, but the city did not keep its commitment of transparency in spending the money, in my opinion. So they spent the funds without full transparency. So always follow the money from those who pay and from those who get the money. You have a new city manager who wants to improve the economic development opportunity within the city and neighboring communities that will benefit our region. My concern for the lack of blacks being employed and promoted on city staff, especially in the police department, is still a major issue. I know many people are demanding that the police departments be defunded. I'm not one of them. As a former police commissioner and the first African American chairman, I am requesting that you investigate reforming the police department as well as the Public Safety Commission that comprises citizens appointed by you. We have a death angel in our community by the name of COVID-19 that's killing our citizens. We can reduce the impact of the sickness and death by wearing masks, face shields, washing your hands, staying a safe distance from each other. And now we have the vaccine. I would encourage everyone to educate themselves, and when it is offered, please take it. Have a Merry Christmas and a safe New Year. Thank you. Hardy Brown.
Hello, this is Robert Porter, 4th generation living in San Bernardino, for items not on the agenda for the open session meeting. Today I'd like to say thank you for all this election stuff being over. I'm so happy to have Ben Reynoso, Kimberly Calvin, and Damon Alexander in there now. Thank you very much, council people. You worked hard to get to where you're at right now. So now it's time to do some good for San Bernardino. You know I always like that. So a little bit of an update for you, history-wise team. I applied for the Arts and Historic Preservation Commission. Hopefully you can all find it in your hearts to appoint me to that position. I will work hard for San Bernardino, and you know I love San Bernardino history for sure. But I'd also like to give an update on the Ann Terrell's Park African American monuments. For the last few months, I've been working with Kimberly Calvin and Sandra Barra and a few others to get the memorial over there redone. So I just got in contact with his name is Bruce Ricker, and he has the memorial and funeral cemetery products spot on Waterman Avenue. He's a history buff himself, knows Nick Cataldo, the whole crew. He's done monuments all over our area in the Inland Empire, and he's going to help us get the stone for the 7 trees that are over there for African American pioneers. And then I got a team in Redlands that's going to help me engrave them. So the same guy who engraved our monument, the Vietnam Memorial Monument in front of City Hall, is going to help us do this too. So there's a few more things we have to do. We have to get the money together. So hopefully we'll soon start the GoFundMe, and let's get these monuments rolling. You know I love you, team. Let's do this. We can work together and make San Bernardino a better place. This is Robert Porter, and I love San Bernardino.
This is a public comment for Treasurer Ortiz for open sessions. First, I want to congratulate the new council members super appreciate your incoming service and all that you guys have talked about with constituents. Your elections have shown that we are looking for actions and not baseless words that we've received from the previous council members. Tonight, you're basically jumping from the pan to the fire, and there are a lot of issues in our city that have gone unaddressed by this previous council for the last 2 years. We have had an increase in our murder rates. We are seeing that our community policing has failed. We are financially still in uncertain times with an additional shutdown of COVID. We have no general plan after receiving $3 million a year ago. We're no further in making sure that we put forth a good plan for development for our residents to prosper later on with bringing in new industries. New council members, I ask you to step up and be the leaders that we haven't had for the last 2 years. It's your turn now to take the helm and steer us in the right direction towards prosperity. We can't continue down the same path. And your election shows that the people are awake, they're watching, and they're hopeful for a change in the right direction. I also ask that you as a council look at the nominations for these other committees and boards throughout the city and the county and our representation, because the lack of diversity for those who were picked to be on the Airport Authority, Transportation Authority, Homeless Authority boards is utterly ridiculous. Was Sandra or Kim or Fred or Teddy, was anybody else asked whether or not they could participate on these additional boards and show a greater realm of representation for the community at large? I hope that you guys ask that question too. Thank you.
Hello, Council. My name is Leticia Garcia. I'm calling today because I wanted to talk about an item on the agenda in regards to the appointments for the new and returning council members. It seems like in another disgusting and blatant display of our mayor's misogyny, we are noticing that there are no recommendations for women to any of the various boards and commissions, and that only men are being appointed to these positions, which is completely unacceptable. And while the third ward councilman is being recommended for 3 positions, I believe that it would be his duty, and I would hope that he would be responsible enough to decline a couple of those positions and open it up to the women on the council. It is completely unacceptable that there were not one single woman was chosen. So I hope that you all will rethink that situation and that we can at least get a woman to represent us in 1 or 2 of the positions available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. City Clerk. Does that conclude our comments tonight?
That concludes the comments.
Okay, very good. Moving on to our staff report. This is the election of the Mayor Pro Tem. Recommended that the Mayor and City Council open nominations for a member of this City Council to serve as Mayor Pro Tem until the second regularly held scheduled meeting in December 2021. I'll open it up to nominations.
I'd like to nominate Sandra Ibarra to be the Mayor Pro Tem for the year 2021.
I'd like to second that.
Okay. Ms. City Clerk, if there's no other nominations, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes.
Councilmember Charette?
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso?
Yes.
Councilmember Calvin?
Yes.
And Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations, Councilmember. Moving on to item number 5. This is a 2021 proposed City Council meetings. You have the recommendation staff report. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend what's presented here in the staff report. There are, looks like 5 dates proposed by the mayor. I think he has a point on some of them, but not all of them. My motion would be to eliminate the meeting for January 6th, 2021 and July 7th, 2021. There's a lot of business and a lot of work that we have to do as council members to improve the city. And the only reason I would push to strike January and July, just one meeting in January and July, is because for January 6th, that would require staff to work basically Christmas and New Year's in order to get those staff reports. And agendas have tended to be slim in the month of late December, early January. And then in July, they would have to work the 4th of July weekend in order to get the agenda out to us for July 7th. Those are the only two I would strike. We have to be here for most council meetings. But these two, I think we can skip, and that would be my motion.
Okay, we'll open it up to other comments. Councilmember Barra.
It's just a point of clarification. So keep the April 7th meeting, November 17th and December 15th, correct?
That is correct, yes.
I'm okay with that one. I'll second that motion.
Okay, Councilmember Reynoso, go ahead, sir.
I was going to second. That's fine.
Okay, any other further discussion? If not, I think staff has direction on those amendments. Any other further comments? All right, Ms. City Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelvin,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. On to number 6 tonight. This is a nuisance abatement program. Recommendation is that Mayor and City Council direct the city manager to establish a nuisance abatement program and amend the 2021 operating budget to allocate $1 million in one-time funding to be set aside to support this program. We'll ask for hold on, council members. We'll ask for a staff report from our city manager. Mr. City Manager, please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, City Council. The item before you tonight is a result of direction that was provided at the last council meeting to bring back a proposal for some form of an investment in abatement, in an enhanced abatement program around the city. We know that we see essentially in all wards areas that are in drastic need of some sort of cleanup effort. So with working with staff, we have developed the attached program outline. I should point out that this is a proposal. It would be fleshed out and brought back in to provide additional detail to the council at a later date. This is the first shot at basically establishing the program and setting up some basic parameters, and we would then suggest bringing back the fully developed program at a future council meeting. The details are going to be explained tonight by Mike Huntley of Community and Economic Development. Mike, it's all yours.
Point of order, Mayor. Point of order, Mayor.
Council member, let's let staff.
Before we go into detail here, there are some concerns I have here for our city manager. Also, at the last council meeting, I mentioned that we also have capital improvement projects that are unfunded currently. In order for us to proceed with this nuisance abatement program, we should consider everything else that is unfunded currently, not just what the mayor suggested at the last meeting. I also made a recommendation, and it's not included in this report.
Thank you for that. Please proceed, Mr. Huntley.
Thanks, Rob. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, over the last decade, staff reductions have occurred throughout the organization due to a variety of financial constraints placed upon the organization. Staff levels in code enforcement division have been reduced significantly, impacting the city's ability to address major public nuisance issues within the community. Both the City Council and the community have voiced those concerns to city staff and the city's inability to address a variety of public nuisance abatements throughout the city. At the last City Council meeting, the Finance Department did share information regarding the fiscal 2020-21 first quarter budget report that was presented to council. At that meeting, a combination of better than expected revenue, including the passage of Measure S, one-time revenue received from the Federal CARES Act, and savings from the refinancing of the city's pension obligation funds, have allowed additional funding that might be beneficial to the city. I do want to point out that really at this point, the city's revenue is starting to rebound, and due to cuts in previous years, right now might be the time for the organization to reconsider financing strategic programs within the organization that have been cut probably over the last 8 to 10 years, one of those being code enforcement. As has been indicated within the staff report and shared in other council meetings, code enforcement had been cut, and for a 64 square mile city, we only have 6 code enforcement officers, 3 support staff that actually address the public nuisance abatements throughout the city. Due to limited staffing, it's been difficult for code enforcement to be proactive, but only reactive. So with that, one of the considerations we have in front of you tonight is to actually fund a public nuisance abatement program that would hire some additional staff members that would focus specifically on the more significant issues within the community. You know, city staff does hear this on a regular basis. You know, I drive out in the city looking at different areas, and there's just so much that needs to be addressed. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to start to beef back up code enforcement so we can provide those services throughout the community. Now, this specific program by itself is going to focus on those most significant issues within the community. Some of those would deal with public nuisance properties. It'll deal with properties that have abandoned and burned out buildings. As you probably saw, we had another fire today off of, I want to say it's probably up in Ward 2, and all things being equal, that's another issue we have to deal with. We have regular fires associated with transient and homeless throughout the city, and code enforcement continues to try to battle trying to address those issues. There's also a wide variety of other issues we're also looking at addressing as well. Staff is currently working through some of the programming of this program. What we will need to make this functionally work is an outside services that will, similar to what we have today. We currently contract with 2 separate companies that do provide assistance with boarding up of abandoned buildings, with tearing down existing buildings, burned out buildings, and also for hauling things off. We'll also need to add some additional staffing to be able to strictly address this public nuisance issue. And then we're also we'll need some additional legal services to help out with some of the abatement so we can move forward. So with that, we have identified one-time savings that could be used, and we'll say could be used for establishing this program. I know when you look at the figure, it says $1 million. That is a lot of money. But if I could convey to you the amount of money we're spending continually boarding up structures. Since I've been here, we have some buildings in the city where we've had to go and board them up 10, 12 or more times. And that's a impact to the city's coffers. So really what we're trying to do is set up a program where we take this one-time funding. It goes into help doing the abatement. As soon as the abatement's done, then what we would do is we would lien the property, and then in the future, when the property sells, that money would come back into an account. It would revolve back into the funding that is necessary for public nuisance abatement. This would provide the additional funding over the long term to continue this program. So with that concludes staff's presentation tonight. I know that myself and the city manager and the city attorney's office have talked about this program. We need to work out and iron out a few more things with this before we bring it back to council, but we at least wanted to plant the seed based on the complaints we've had, and now we want to try to be more proactive than we've been in the past. So that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huntley. This only provides a resource and tool for our staff to do their job. Many of the complaints that we often get at city council level or the mayor's office involve nuisance issues in our community, such as encampments. I know that the Sears building off Inland Center and G Street has the San Bernardino County Fire Department has shared that in a course of about 4 months, it had 21 service calls to an abandoned building, which is a huge impact on public safety and the service necessary for the constituents that we serve. In addition, a lot of the impacts to neighboring businesses and area and surrounding residents. We'll open it up to council members. And I'm sorry, Mr. Field, if you could just provide, this is a conceptual idea. You'll come back every opportunity to provide more background and direction from council.
That's correct. This is the initiation of the effort. It's not the final proposal, not by a long shot. Yes.
All right. We'll open it up to council members. Council member Alexander.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I've been looking over this nuisance program, I agree with Council Member Ibarra. $1 million is excessive. I did some figures, and I broke it down into code enforcement officers, 2 code enforcement officers for this particular program at $4,000 a month, staffing for 6 months. I broke it down to 1 CSR, customer service representative, at that same rate. And then outside services at $20,000 a month for boarding up. And then the legal services, which Mr. Huntley mentioned, is already done by BB&K. It's in a separate pot. It's approximately $12,000 a month for code enforcement. So if we want to raise that a little bit, that's fine. But if you take all those positions that I just said, it comes up to $282,000. And if you have to give them some IT support, which our city lacks, as a miscellaneous of $18,000, that brings it up to $300,000. And then I would like to see them come back to this august body in 6 months when they get this program started and share with us what achievements that they have made. So I can't see giving them any more than $300,000 and put the rest in abeyance. And if they would like a little help with that, I would be surely like to help them. And also their cannabis enforcement team. We haven't heard anything about the cannabis enforcement team. And I did the same thing with that as well. The police department has not got a police, well, you know what? We're not talking about that. Let's just talk about the nuisance abatement. And that's what I propose.
Council members, yes, Council Member Reynoso.
I want to echo what Councilwoman Ibarra and Councilman Alexander just said. What I'm most concerned about is conceptual frameworks don't cost $1 million. I need tangibles, and I would like some kind of strategic plan for what Councilmember Alexander is talking about. Show us the results. And I also agree that not only do we have places that we are not funding right now, but during a pandemic, it seems like it's going to be totally predatory. I can't separate that out of my mind. When it comes to nuisance abatement, people need to understand that looks like code enforcement going to your house when you have cars on the lawn, just basic code violations, and people can't really afford that right now. And so I think $1 million is a little excessive, first and foremost, and I want to see a very fleshed out plan. I can't, in good faith, support that. Thank you.
Councilmember Figueroa, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. By and large, one of the phone calls that I get from residents usually has to deal with code enforcement issues. This is seriously 80% of the calls that I get or messages I receive tend to deal with code enforcement. Mr. Field, it sounds as though this would be a self-funding or self-sustaining type of program. It's what it's sounding like with the liens. How long would it actually take for this program to begin becoming self-sustaining or self-funding?
The intention would be that it would become a revolving fund. This would be the part of the reason for using one-time money is to have it reestablish itself over time. When you do big enforcement cases, like for example, you have a house that burned down and the owner is not a local resident and essentially walks away from it. We would then abate the issue. and lien the property. And then when that property was redeemed, the proceeds would then go back into the program. And the program ultimately, hopefully, would be self-sustaining. It's really more intended, I think, to address the bigger issues, the bigger abatement issues we see around town, like the one that Mr. Huntley just described over, I think it was on Waterman, happened earlier today. We got notified this morning at 6 o'clock by the fire department that there was a fire in a building that had been a sort of a chronic problem with homeless residents, and which had not been successfully addressed through conventional methods. So that's what would be the intention, is to address the bigger issues, and it would be a revolving program that would reestablish itself over time. So that would be at least the intent of the initial structure as we have presented. It would not be for just sort of more of the traditional code enforcement efforts where you have a weed infested property or something, or a couch or an appliance sitting on the curb for a protracted amount of time. This is really more intended ultimately for the larger abatement efforts.
And Mr. Huntley, I heard you allude to a little earlier as far as, and I think it was you who said it, some of the costs associated, some of the ancillary costs that we've experienced by not having this kind of program, just simply because of the boarding up and having to make multiple trips back out over and over again. Is there an actual way to calculate what some of those costs have been? Do we actually have that on hand as far as what those costs have been up to this point?
You're muted, Mike.
Thank you. So with that, it sounds like there needs to be more education, more vetting out. But yes, we do have numbers. We know how many times we've had to go out to a specific property. Some of these are chronic. As council will see, we will be bringing more items for closed session associated with receivership, because we have some chronic property owners in town who just lack or don't want to take care of their properties. And because we're constantly going out and doing maintenance out there, that money's hitting us pretty hard in the pocketbook. I do want to also mention a lot of this also happens many times when we have fires within the community. We need to go out there, we need to abate and tear down those buildings. It's not inexpensive to do such. And in some cases, we have to actually fully abate and clean the property. We recently did one up there on Mount Vernon. The total cost for the total abatement was $24,000 to actually get that taken care of, right? So that's just one of many examples. But I think, there's more information that we need to share, more of the facts, more of the numbers, which I think would be beneficial to the council at large.
And I think we should be clear too that we don't currently have resources through the budget to perform those sorts of big cleanups on a regular basis, which makes it much more challenging. When we have those sorts of requests for service from various numbers of people in the community, sometimes from the fire department or other folks. So it's something that we need to explore at least. So we appreciate the opportunity to at least have a discussion on this. We hope to be able to be more responsive when the community turns up issues that are of significant concern, like the one that Mike just cited. So,
and a final comment. This will be my final comment regarding this. I was recently having, and I'll give credit to Mr. Luis Ojeda. We had a nice conversation about some of these things. I know that he's done a lot as far as cleanups in the city as well, and so I'm thankful for his efforts and contributions to the city. But one of the things that we talked about is, when somebody submits a Go request CRM, many times, the person who does submit it gets an email back, but doesn't really get a picture as far as what was actually taken care of. I'm not sure if we would have that capability to, if something is done in-house, whether it be, something along these lines here, to include a picture that it was taken care of, it along with the email notifying the person who submitted it that it was taken care of as well. So that's my final comment on that.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. I think one of the problems that I had with the staff report was it was bracketed on page 1 of the staff report. We had a sort of penciling of the funds. I want to ensure that a lot of that money is spent out for rolling out services so we can clean up our community. My apprehension is that somehow, and I understand legal services are required and they're necessary because Obviously, we have to have demolition orders and we have to have abatement orders processed. But I really don't want a lot of that money spent on legal services. So that's for your consideration, Mr. City Manager, as we construct the guardrails here. Bottom line is we have to clean up our city. That's our fiduciary responsibility. That's what we're here to do, is to take care of business as far as public works and enabling our city to get to work and the tools necessary. I think your constituents will stand 110% behind you. We'll open it up to Councilmember Ibarra. Go ahead.
Well, on that same page, Mayor, I'd like to add that our constituents would love to see their street lights working. They would love to see their streets fixed. They would love to see their sidewalks also fixed. So I would make the recommendation that city staff bring this back as a workshop so we can discuss all the unfunded capital improvement projects and the funding needed for additional staffing in the code enforcement. But I can't, in good faith, I can't approve this right now, especially when I made those comments at the last council meeting, and that was totally disregarded in this report. So I will make the recommendation, or the motion to bring this back before council in a workshop style.
Second that motion.
Okay, Councilmember Ibarra's motion to continue to workshop with Damon Alexander, Councilmember Alexander, motioning second support. Comments from Councilman Sanchez.
I just want to make a substitute motion that we approve the staff recommendation and allot the $1 million. Staff is going to come back with a detailed plan as to how the money is going to be spent. Is that correct, Mr. Mike Huntley?
You are correct.
This is a bleeding wound here in the city. There are some places in my district and throughout the city that are in really bad shape. And what we got to do is we got to offer a helping hand. And I know in conversation with Mr. Mike Huntley, we've talked about sending out letters to every resident in the city, pointing out some of the issues to every resident. So not discriminating, but to every resident in the city, pointing out a couple of the systemic problems, like you can't do this, you can't do this, making them aware of the rules and the municipal code, so that a lot of these good people don't know the rules. And hopefully with these letters, they can see that they're in violation of the municipal code and clean up. A lot of this is going to be education based, I think, and that's why I would approve this. That's fine.
I'll second the substitute motion with a comment.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I think I need to ask the city manager or Mr. Huntley. I understand the CIP, and I understand that we've got a lot of capital improvements that we need to be made, but I think this is entirely independent of that, and this is a critical program that we need to get started, and I will be supporting it as the substitute motion. And $1 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is on an individual basis. But for a city our size and with the problems that we have, this is a broken windows program, frankly. These kinds of abatements and kinds of problems that we have throughout our city are adding to our crime problem. And the crime problem, as everyone knows, I think, right now is just out of hand. With the number of homicides that we have, the number of shootings that we have, we've got to change the image of this city, and this is one way of doing that. And this is just a critical program. And as I say, $1 million by itself is a lot of money, but for a program and for a city our size, and with some of the issues that we have throughout our community right now, and I say that clearly, throughout the community. I mean, that's north, east, what are the other two? West and south. It's throughout, in all wards throughout the city, that we need these abatements going on. And I think, frankly, I think $1 million for the problem that we have is probably not enough. I think it's certainly a good starting point, and I look forward to staff bringing back some further details, and as we tweak this program and improve it and increase it, and I will be supporting it.
All right, there's a substitute by Councilman Sanchez, Councilman Charette second to move the floor motion And again, this is critical. This is what you sign up to do, is to address some of these issues. Back in 2015 to 2016, the former administration literally eviscerated our code enforcement department. We transitioned a lot of that, and we don't currently have a credible team or the quantity to address 65 square miles. And this is a increasing burden upon our constituents, the businesses that place their trust in city government. So we'll open it up to comments. Councilmember Alexander.
You're muted.
I'll defer to Councilwoman Calvin. She's been raising her hand here for a minute, and then I'll go after her.
Councilmember Calvin.
Thank you, Councilmember Alexander, Mayor. One of the questions that I had asked City Manager Field was, do we have a plan? Do we know who and what businesses, what homeowners or abandoned places will we first target? And that's why I think that a comprehensive and very strategic plan will give us as council members more insight as to exactly what is the plan, who and what businesses, what are we targeting? Because as Councilman Reynoso mentioned, there may be a lot of reasons for some to not be able to take care of their properties at this particular moment. While I am definitely wanting to have an abatement program on board, I want to just make sure that we know as council members that we are very aware as to what the target or who the target is far before we implement.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Calvin. And yes, part of our intention with this specific staff report is actually to seek the council's approval to go out and develop exactly the details that you're asking for. I wouldn't say, we can't really target any one group of people in particular or business types or anything else. The intention would be, though, to go kind of after the persistent bad actors. It's not common to run into a situation where the first time a building is cited, would be the time that it would need to be abated. Most responsible property owners, this is not going to be targeted at them at all. It will be the persistent bad actors, the frequent flyers, as we sometimes refer to them, that are having a significant negative impact on the community. I think Councilmember Charette mentioned the broken windows concept. It is broken windows writ large. It is not for as I said earlier, it's not for the abandoned appliance situation. And we can put and the mayor had mentioned guardrails. I think one of the guardrails that needs to be placed around it is that we make sure that we're not negatively impacting quality of life for individual families especially those who are going through tough times. Really, ultimately, my guess, based on my knowledge of the city so far, is that a lot of the properties that we would be looking at abating, frankly, aren't owned by people who live in San Bernardino. They're out of town landowners typically, and who are consistently not paying attention to the properties that they own in San Bernardino. They are significant contributors to the ongoing issues with our image. And what our hope is as staff is to bring something forward that will sort of, I think, bring back a better sense of community pride in San Bernardino. The last thing that we would want to do is to hurt that. What we really want to do is enhance pride, make the citizens of San Bernardino feel a little bit better about the fact that the city is trying to do something to improve their quality of life and improve the way that their city looks. And, Councilmember Ibarra brings up good points. I mean, one of the other things that needs to be brought forward quickly is some additional attention to our capital improvement program. But that's going to take a little bit more time. This is, and all we are asking for tonight, by the way, again, is direction to go out and flesh out the program and bring back the program, knowing what the amount of funding would be that would be available, so we can develop a program that's around that proposed funding number. And most of the money, and I hear you, Mayor, we don't want to spend it all. No offense to the city attorney's office, but we don't want to spend all the money on legal services. I would hope that most of the money would or on staff. Most of the money would be spent with contractors who would be cleaning up sites that are persistently bringing down the quality of life for the residents of people in every ward in the city. So that is That is our suggestion. That is our request in the verbiage in the staff report. And yes, Councilmember, I do recall that conversation very clearly, and what your points were that you made in that discussion are very well taken, and they would definitely be featured in what we would intend to bring back to the council at a future date.
Councilmember Calvin, go ahead.
How soon would you be able to have that report or the strategic plan prepared, City Manager?
Mike, what do you think?
I'm looking at maybe the first meeting in February.
That's in.
We could do a little. I mean,
if we can do that, then that's when we.
Yeah. So let me say this. Probably end of February, first part of March. We're going to be kicking off the general plan and thinking about those meetings. Also, might hold it up. So anyway, end of February, first part of March.
And we also have budget, and I mean that's mid-year and a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on at that point in time. But yeah, so if you're prepared to do that, then that's what our target would be.
Thank you, Councilmember Alexander. Go ahead.
Yes, like I said before, this plan, $1 million to a lot is in my opinion is far too much. If you want to bring back a temporary or a trial program that we can see, you can still hire your staff. You can still proceed forward with, say, $500,000. When I came up, like I said, it's $300,000, and you can hold the rest on a line item to see how your program functions. Like you said, come back, see how it's doing, because all you're doing is hiring more code enforcement officers, and then assigning them within the code enforcement division within a program. Am I correct?
Actually, I think the intention is more, as I said, I don't want to spend it all on staff. It's not a staff enhancement program in its own right. The appropriate time to do that is actually through the mid-year budget report, is when we would bring back proposals to hire staff. And in fact, there is not an actual motion. There's not a motion in here to hire additional staff anyway. But we hear you loud and clear. When we were discussing this internally, I made it clear. My intention really is to let's see some actual impact, so we can have something to bring back to you when we report back to you on the effect of the program. So spending a lot of money on staff, I agree with you, Councilman, is not the primary intention. It is to actually show results, to actually show progress in cleaning up some troubled areas of San Bernardino. One of the areas that I've seen in Ward 6 is right next to the freeway. It's an off-ramp where someone has allowed a whole bunch of concrete to be dumped, and there has been no action to remove that, to clean that up. And there are several examples of that sort of impact around him. And as I said, I don't think there's a single ward that doesn't have examples like that. Councilwoman Calvin showed me that specifically, and candidly, one of the inspirations behind this program, Councilmember Calvin, was that discussion. I mean, the fact that you have got this significant troubled site that is bringing down a big chunk of Ward 6. And you're right, it is a significant problem. It is not a minor problem. And the only way, though, for us that we can conceive of to solve a problem like that is to fund it and to clean it up. But certainly I don't want to overburden this, Councilman Alexander, with staff or other extraneous expenses. The core purpose is to actually go out to do the boots on the ground cleanup effort, so we make immediate and noticeable improvements in the city.
Well, and I agree with you. I'm sure none of my council members will not agree that we need this. We're not saying, at least I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is $1 million seems a little excessive when we have other major needs, pressing needs that the city has, and our fiscal. You say it's great. I'm a conservative, so I hold everything in that. I don't know what tomorrow brings. So allotting $1 million to me is too much. That's all I got to say about this subject. Thank you,
Councilmember. Mr. Field, give us some context on the presentation last council meeting for those new council members joining us tonight. We had the November 18, 2020 fiscal year-end report, a great report on a year-end out of 1920, and then the following council meeting, December 2nd, we had a first quarter 2020-21 quarter report. And in context, tell us why there is, in essence, some extra money here and plus some cost savings as mentioned in the staff report.
So essentially, the economic performance of the city has exceeded that which was anticipated by a significant amount. A lot of that was based on estimates that were provided at the beginning of the COVID crisis, and we were, I think, appropriately conservative in the budget estimating going into the crisis. So some of the numbers were candidly they were too conservative. They were incorrect. So as it turns out, we have now been able to top out our reserve, the two mandated reserves, at 25% of the total of the general fund. And we then had an undesignated reserve on that of almost $15 million. I should point out, by the way, that our intent here, because we do want this to be a self-sustaining program, is that this is one-time money. It is not ongoing. So this is not a suggestion that we put an ongoing component of the city's general fund, which we guard zealously because it's sort of the gold standard for the city. This is one-time money, mostly from savings that resulted from a refunding of our pension obligation bonds. So we got a refund through that refinancing program. So this would be funded through one-time money. That's the whole intent that's part of the reason we want to set it up as something that recycles, that it comes back and it reestablishes itself over time as we receive funding through people redeeming the liens on property. Or if the city ends up owning that property, then we would sell the property and we'd recover the funds that way. So, but it was because it was partly a reflection of the fact that the city is in better fiscal shape than was expected. And as we're continuing to see economic activity grow in the city, that we anticipate, and we'll see what happens as we go through the 21-22 budgeting process, that our fiscal health is going to continue to improve. So there are a lot of things. There's latency in a lot of the different types of funding streams that we receive into the general fund. And there has still been some impact on the general fund from COVID. So as a result, once we come out of COVID, things like transient occupancy tax and some components of sales tax are likely to increase again too. So our trajectory fiscally appears at the moment to be fairly steady and improving. We're on an upward trajectory, not downward, which makes it sort of a unique time in the city's history. So I think that's sort of the upshot of the two reports that we received. We finished out last fiscal year better than we expected, and we have started out the current fiscal year better than we expected. And I think, I'm sorry, Mayor, it looks like Councilmember Ibarra.
Yes, Councilmember Ibarra. Thank you, Rob, for that context. Councilmember Ibarra.
Yes, so you're saying, Mr. City Manager, that our finances are doing better than anticipated.
Yes.
Back in June, we were in the negative, I believe, $3 million around that we were still trying to figure out. And that was back in June. I have been asking for financials up through September 30th. It is now coming the end of the year, and we haven't seen those actual figures. And this is, according to the staff report, this is, like you mentioned, is a one-time savings for the refinancing of the pension obligation bonds. Does this money have to be used this year, or can it be put on hold? Because I am not comfortable with giving a whole $1 million without, my colleagues mentioned, tangible figures. Is this something that has to be used right now for this fiscal year, or is something that can be there to help balance our budget too?
No, it can be held in reserve, but we should point out that the current fiscal year budget is balanced and actually better than balanced. And so we'll be bringing some proposals back to you, some recommendations at the mid-year budget report for some additional investments in the city. And I should also note, I understand your request. As I mentioned during my remarks at the beginning of the meeting, we just received the audit back, and we will distribute the audit to each of you.
And to clarify, that's the audit for 1920 fiscal year, yes. Not 2021. 2021 is the one we were concerned with because there was that deficit in June.
Yes, the deficit was a forecast, and the forecast was not correct. Okay. So the actuals have proven out that the way that the analysis has happened, the actuals have proven out to be significantly better than what was forecast at the end of fiscal year 1920.
Okay, so can we hold off on voting on this until we see those actual figures, Mr. City Manager?
That is what, yeah, absolutely. There's no obligation to proceed with this allocation of money tonight. It can be held in reserve or allocated to the program or allocated to something else. I mean, that is not a staff decision, but certainly in terms of can it be? Absolutely.
Correct. This is a policy issue that's before the council. Councilmember Sanchez, go ahead.
Yes, I know we talked a lot about tangibles, but kind of a procedural thing. I think at this point we need to give the approval so that they can spend that staff time to come back with the tangibles and thoroughly explain, well, this is why it's $1 million and the reason why we asked for $1 million as opposed to 500,000. So the reason we don't have the
we can work with the current staffing that we have and then find out why certain properties are taking longer to abate currently.
You mean the staff we have right now? Oh God, I think we have like 1.5 code enforcement officers. I think we have it only in name. Let's really give an opportunity for them to come back. And again, this is just so that we can have our awe moment, right? So right now they're just asking us so that they can move forward to put that together. That's probably going to be that thick. And then at that point, we open it up and say, well, it doesn't add up. We shouldn't be spending $1 million. Or, oh, you know what? We should be spending more than $1 million.
Right.
So right now, this is just so that they can come back. This is just us giving them permission to come back with that big, thick report that's going to tell us this is what we want to spend that money on. And I think we should allow them the opportunity to make their case. And they can't do that. They can't write that. They're not going to write that for free. They gotta have that. Oh, yeah, that's all.
Got it. All right. There's a substitute motion. We had plenty of discussion. We need to continue on.
I just want to mention, Mayor, the recommendation that staff is saying is they want us to allocate $1 million in the one-time funding to be set aside to support the program. That's what the staff is asking us for, to allocate that $1 million currently.
Well, they can't write that report, and then we say, no, we're only going to allocate 200.
We've had some reassurances tonight by our staff. So we have a motion by Councilman Sanchez and Councilman Charette to, as a substitute motion to support the staff recommendation. Ms. City Clerk, if you call the roll on that motion, please.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
No.
Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes.
Councilmember Charette?
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso?
No.
Councilmember Calvin?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
No.
Motion passes 4-3 with council members Ibarra, Reynoso, and Alexander voting in opposition.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. City Manager, you have direction, and we appreciate your steadfastness in bringing us that report back. You have direction and approval from the council. Moving on to our consent calendar for tonight, we'll go ahead and poll council members, beginning with council member from the 1st District, Councilman Sanchez. Any polls tonight, sir?
No polls tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barra?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 14.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Figueroa?
None, Mayor. None tonight.
Councilmember Charette?
None.
Councilmember Reynoso?
I'd like to pull item number 18.
Councilmember Kelvin?
I'd like to pull number 12.
Councilmember Alexander?
7 and 10.
All right. Motion for the balance?
Move approval.
Second.
Second by Councilman Sanchez. And Ms. City Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes.
Councilmember Charette?
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso?
Yes.
Councilmember Calvin?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to council member, we'll go into items of pull, not necessarily items of the ward. Council member Alexander, Sir, you pulled item number 7. This is consent calendar item 7, October, November 2020 minutes of city board commissions and advisory. Sir?
Yes, just checking the why haven't our commissions, other than those 2 commissions, been meeting, and I would like to get it on the agenda to discuss why our other commissions, such as Parks and Recs, Public Safety, and all the other commissions have not been meeting during this particular time, and when will they begin to meet? That's it.
Okay, is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second.
All right. Ms. City Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Surratt,
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso,
Yes.
Councilmember Calvin,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 10 has been pulled by Councilmember Alexander. This is a consent calendar item, amendment to legal services. Councilmember Alexander.
Can BB&K, can Madam City Attorney please assist me on why the cap has continuously jumped? It started at $50,000, then subsequently jumped to $150,000 in July of 2020, and now you are asking for us to approve another jump to $250,000.
Yes, if I may, Mayor and council members, City Attorney Carvalho. The item before you is a request from outside legal counsel. This law firm, Carpenter, Rothens, and Dumont, specializes in handling litigation related to officer-involved incidents. The initial contract for $50,000 was done simply because that is the city manager's purchasing authority. So initially, when we have an incident where we need to bring someone on board, we do hire them under the city manager's purchasing authority. The initial $150,000 was to do an assessment of the case, determine exactly how much more would be needed in this case. This particular case was briefed in closed session, and the city council was briefed on the complexities of it. And oftentimes what happens in a case is if a case looks like it needs to have further workup, or let's say that they do their initial assessment and then they believe, you know what, this is a case we should take to trial. Maybe it's a good case to defend all the way to trial. Those costs will increase significantly. So we can get you a budget and we can get you a meeting with our outside counsel. I would make that offer to any of our new council members who obviously were not in closed session, and we can sit down. But it is not unusual for a case of this type to incur upwards of $200,000 to $400,000 if a city is going to take it all the way to trial.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Surratt,
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso,
No.
Councilmember Calvin,
No.
Councilmember Alexander. You're muted.
It says you have sufficient funds, so no.
Motion passes 4-3 with council members Reynoso, Calvin, and Alexander voting in opposition.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. City Clerk. Moving on to item number 12. This has been pulled by Councilmember Kim Calvin of the 6th District. Development Code Amendment 20-02, the San Bernardino Travel Center. This is located in Ward 6. Councilmember representing the 6th Ward, Councilmember Calvin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have pulled this item because I do not feel that I have enough information to vote in any type of way on this matter. Also, I have been engaged by the opposition, and I would like to engage the voter as council member Calvin and not council member elect. I have not had the opportunity to look at any of this information. You all have been studying this for quite some time with this project. I haven't been able to speak to developers, anybody in planning, or like I said, been able to speak and address the community members, the constituents of Ward 5. I'm asking that we table this matter until I'm able to look deeper into this travel center.
Second. Is that a motion? Councilwoman Calvin?
I do motion.
For this has been made public. It was available.
Councilmember Calvin motions to table. The significance of, and thank you, Councilmember Reynoso, moves to table this. There are dire consequences.
No further discussion if it's moved and tabled.
Well, there's further consequences and they're dire.
I agree, but legally
I
you can't.
understand. Well, let me do my responsibility to chair. Thank you, Councilmember Charette. Ms. City Clerk, please call the roll. Move to table.
Councilmember Sanchez?
No.
Councilmember Ibarra?
Yes.
Councilmember Figueroa?
No.
Councilmember Charette?
No.
Councilmember Reynoso?
I'm sorry, Councilmember?
Yes.
Councilmember Calvin?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yes.
The motion to table passes 4-3 with council members Sanchez, Figueroa, and Charette opposing the table.
And I will veto that under my privileges. This is unacceptable. This is a big economic impact to our community. The motion remains, and under my authority and provided to me, I will veto that.
Point of order, please. Point of order, please.
Councilmember Sanchez, please proceed.
Yes. I would be willing because we're back at step one.
Move to approve.
We don't have the votes. Or well, let's try that, and then if we don't get that, let's find the compromise. I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, let's have some discussion on that. I would like to recognize Mr. Kadakia. Mr. Kadakia, sir, are you joining us and can you hear us regarding the travel centers? You are the developer. Sir, you're recognized for 3 minutes and please address the City Council.
Yes, good evening. First off, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Well, first off, Councilwoman Calvin, I'd like to congratulate you, Councilman Reynoso and Councilman Alexander, for your recent appointment to the City Council. I look forward to working with you guys in the upcoming years, not only on this project, but to continue and develop projects all around the city that we can all be proud of. I understand this is a big project. I understand that there may be some information that you may be lacking as it relates to this project. I'm going to do my best in the next couple minutes here to explain what we've done and who we are and what this project brings to the community. My name is Atman Kadaki. I'm the managing principal here at Greens Development. Our company specializes in hotels, fuel station, retail, apartments. We're doing projects all over the area in the Inland Empire, Riverside, Big Bear, Victorville, Grand Terrace, of course here in San Bernardino. What I want to talk about here primarily in this short time is we've worked extensively with staff over the last year and a half on this project. We've done a number of studies. We worked with local constituents. We've worked with the neighborhood groups. And we have agreed to install extensive off-site improvements, new traffic controls, new traffic signal. Important part of our operation is we operate all of our businesses. We just don't develop them and sell them off. So we're focused on things like safety, security, traffic circulation, and operations. We've done things like EV charging. We've set ourselves up to be capable to do hydrogen in the future. We've really focused on doing things that will help us accommodate the future. We also truly strive to be very much part of a community. We operate a number of businesses and we always support local schools teams, sport teams, other youth and community organizations. We look at this facility as an opportunity to generate a significant tax revenue to the city's general fund. We expect to bring in over $1 million a year directly to the city's general fund. Currently, the site is blighted. is a vacant site that has trucks littered there illegally parked there. There's a lot of trucks in the area, a lot of warehouses in the area. Our site will be a zero tolerance site. We'll work with local law enforcement. We provide, for example, small thing we do, we provide free, complimentary coffee to all law enforcement, firemen, women, firemen and women, and first responders. We are planning to cater to the existing trucks in the area, generated from the surrounding warehouses. We're also bringing 5 family-friendly restaurants to the facility. We'll have enhanced landscaping, outdoor patio and dining spaces, as well as a 14,000 square foot convenience store. This project is completely self-funded by Greens. There is no city contribution of any kind. We will generate over $40 million over 30 years directly to the city's general fund. In addition, we will provide a significant amount of gas and tax revenue that can be used for road infrastructure, that can be used for all of the improvements that the city so desperately needs. We know that with any development, there's going to be concerns. We understand that. We welcome that. We need the residents of Vertimont. We will do everything we can to support the residents of Vertimont. We're going to provide 160 jobs to local residents in a time where there's so much uncertainty coming forward. We know again, and I know I don't have much time here, but I just want to reiterate that I know this is a big project and there's a lot of information that you may need. But I can assure you that we have worked very hard over the last year and a half on this project. Additionally, we do not have a lot of time left with our seller. So unfortunately, if this project gets continued, there may be a possibility that we will not be able to develop this project whatsoever, simply due to the fact that we are buying this property from someone else and we have a binding legal escrow and a time frame by which we have to complete our transaction. So we truly appreciate your concern. I really look forward to getting to know each one of you personally. A lot of the things you spoke about, Councilwoman Calvin, we support as a company. My family is an immigrant family as well. We've come here from India in the late 80s. We understand the hard work and energy and effort it takes to uplift the communities. We have always given back to our local communities, and we look forward to doing that here within San Bernardino. So I truly hope that if you have further questions, I can answer them tonight, hopefully assuage any of your concerns, and we can move this project forward rather than shutting it down, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kadakia. We appreciate your investment. And frankly, Mr. Huntley, briefly, because it was in the staff report and the expectation is council members come prepared to vote. Tell us just briefly, this has been approved and vetted through Planning Commission, and kind of provide that update.
Just like to do first, just kind of talk about what the project is. I know Mr. Kadaki's kind of covered that, but what it is what their intent is and what the proposal is tonight, and what's is in front of the city council is a proposed travel center project that would take and combine land use characteristics of a service station with a convenience store and drive-through restaurant, along with a truck fueling station, overnight truck parking. Proposed convenience stores include 2 separate restaurants inside. There's other facilities to assist with those long haul truckers on the property as well. There'll be a separate drive-through restaurant on site for them. Traffic and circulation associated with this would be for the heavy trucks accessing it would be off of Kendall farther north up from the property. Pedestrian access by their cars will actually be from Palm Avenue. So they've actually broken out the 2 different access points to minimize the traffic and circulation. And this item did go in front of the Planning Commission on November 10th, was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission. This was not an approval, but actually recommending City Council to approve this. It went to City Council at the December 2nd meeting, where it was approved by a vote of 5-2. So really what this is, Council has approved the project. As part of this process, because there is ordinance, it is required to come back for second reading, which is what's in front of Council today, to ultimately adopt the ordinance that is in front of them. So that concludes our just short presentation.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Huntley. There has been a motion by Councilmember Sanchez with a second and support by Councilman Charette to approve it. Councilman Reynoso, sir, go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you for the presentation. Mr. Kadakia. If you could take some quick notes for what I'm about to ask you. First, I would like to know if an environmental impact report has been done on the potential truck traffic that will come through the area. And if so, can we have that as public disclosure, or can we disclose that to the public? Second, with this proposed project, what are the infrastructure responsibilities of your development company? How far out does that range? And third, I guess, is a comment, not so much as a question. I just don't see the feasibility of, or reality of, there not being traffic, like insane amounts of traffic. There's already insane amounts of traffic right there. I just can't, it's like 4 or 5 trucks can block up the whole road. You're talking about creating a travel center. So my main concerns over the environmental impacts, I would like to know the environmental impact report. If you could share that, if city staff could share that with me, and we could maybe talk about that more publicly. From what I understand, this vote is a rezoning vote from commercial to industrial light, correct?
Correct.
Right. Okay. You have the floor, Mr. Kadakia.
Yeah, well, Councilman Reynoso, thank you for your questions. I want to assure you that we did do a full traffic study as part of our submittal that staff fully vetted. Traffic was analyzed based on the existing traffic in the area, based on the traffic demand that our property would generate. One of the primary reasons why this facility makes a lot of sense from a traffic perspective is the fact that there's a tremendous amount of warehouses that are already existing on that side of the freeway. These warehouses are there today, and there are a lot of trucks that are illegally parked and illegally littering the area. And so our facility would provide a gated, lighted, secured place for them to park legally. And so in terms of traffic generation, we are not bringing new trucks to the area. We are a facility that serves the existing trucks in the area. Right behind our project, for example, the county approved a facility that may not have come to the city side that has a number of trucks that will be parking in that facility. It has nothing to do with our project. It's already approved. It's already under construction. Our project will serve as a location for these drivers to come and eat, dine, shower, rest, buy food, buy product, and they will all come walking from their existing park locations in this example here. So from a traffic perspective, this is kind of a high level from my side, but we have done a full traffic study with Kimley Horn. All of these documents had been fully circulated. We've gone through the environmental process that the city staff has asked us to go through in depth. We've done a number of different studies. And so that has been done by Kimley Horn engineers. And all of that has been public record and had been circulated, is my understanding. And Mike Huntley can speak to that a little bit further. You asked a couple more questions that I took a few notes here on the side. And I just want to make sure I answer your questions properly. So infrastructure responsibility. So our development is going to have to improve all of the roads surrounding the facility. So we're going to redo the roads on Palm, on Kendall. We're going to redo all the sidewalks, the curb, the gutter. We're going to install enhanced landscaping. We're also going to install a signalized intersection that does not exist. The traffic studies that were done, and if you look through the depth of that study, and that's what staff really analyzed, is that our facility will actually alleviate the traffic congestions that you have here. That is, and I understand, the on face value how that seems. Well, how is that possible? But and I appreciate that, right? Because your concern is traffic, and it makes sense from that perspective. But because the facility will have the signalized intersection, because we will have a means for these trucks to circulate, park, and work in a free flow operation, it will actually alleviate the traffic that is currently there on this intersection. And that is what the studies have come out and shared.
Real quick, the infrastructure you're talking about developing sounds great. My question really was, what is your responsibility once that road starts to peel up? Is it a one-time thing? Is that your infrastructure responsibility? One-time deal?
So that's a great question. My understanding is that the infrastructure that we put in is a one-time infrastructure that we put in. We will be generating a tremendous amount of sales tax revenue. Part of the infrastructure that we have to put in, though, is designed to accommodate the loads and the wear and tear that takes place due to the facility. For example, these roads will be designed to accommodate the weight of these vehicles, of these trucks. So right now you have torn up streets there. The streets are all crumbled. The parking lot is a vacant dirt lot. And what we're going to do is put in brand new streets, brand new infrastructure. And the tax revenues generated from this development will more than cover any ongoing costs. There's a net surplus to the general fund of over $1 million a year based on the facility's income and sales tax and revenues coming into the city.
Thank you. Councilmember Calvin, go ahead.
Yes. Did your traffic studies include the new development that's going to be going into that area?
Yes. Yes, it did.
Okay. And back to then.
Yes, ma'am.
Back to what Councilmember Noso just mentioned. This is a one-time deal. So what happens then, and who's then responsible for when the streets that are going to be put in do not begin to hold up that amount of weight? Because we see that throughout our entire city. So what type of materials are you going to be using that's different than what is being used in our city? Because I don't see our city streets being able to hold up to 18-wheelers that are coming in and out of our community. That's number one. Number two, I don't know if I would consider that area blight. What I would consider that area would be you have illegal trucks parking there. So whoever is the owner of that property can police that area as well, right? With it being fenced off, gated off, something or other. And I believe that the Fifth Ward residents want something more than a truck stop in their neighborhood. With the new incoming development and those 119 families as young families, single family homes, which means they're going to have younger children as well, the air quality is going to be horrible over there for those scholars. And on top of that, when that is the first exit into our city, entrance into our city, we need to be taking a look at how we are reflected. The restaurants that you've mentioned are all drive-through except for the two that are inside of the establishment, correct? Community members there are looking for restaurants, dine-in restaurants, not fast food restaurants, but restaurants where they can go in, sit down, and enjoy themselves. And I just think that there are other things that we could have looked at other than a truck stop to satisfy the constituents of Ward 5. I understand that Ward 6 in that area has become real industrial. Warehouses are over there. I understand that. But I feel like there is an obligation that I also must do due diligence in looking into this item, because the Ward 5 residents are still going to be, this is where they live. So regardless of that, I may not have any homeowners there, but we need to take a look at this. And I think that with the amount of phone calls that I have been receiving regarding this, I'm asking that it be tabled. I do not feel that I'm not able to vote with an informed vote. And if Mayor, you mentioned earlier that everybody's supposed to come, we're supposed to come to ready prepared to vote. But I just became council person today. So all of this information has not been given to me.
Well,
okay. And Mayor, if I may respond
please,
just to a few comments by Councilwoman Calvin. Councilwoman Calvin, I want to share.
Mr. Kadakia, hold on. We'll allow you a final response, and then we do have to proceed with our meeting. We have a motion and a second for approval. Sir, you're recognized for 1 more minute.
Thank you, Councilwoman Calvin. I appreciate your comments. Am I able to share my screen here to the can you all see my screen here?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay. This is one of several renderings, but what I want to share with you guys here is this is not your typical truck stop facility. This is an outdoor landscaped area that is visible from Palm and Kendall. This is a drive-through restaurant. Drive-throughs are very integral and important today, especially due to COVID and the changing means by which people dine, eat, and shop. But with that being said, there will be ample in-store dining. Inside of the travel center facility, it's a 14,000 square foot facility. It includes grocery store. It includes a large food court and a tremendous amount of parking here for the entire community to come down, park. We welcome sports teams and families to come in. We welcome them to sit inside and dine inside the facility. In terms of the restaurants, there's only 2 restaurants that have the drive-through. The other 3 are inside, and the operation of the TA itself also has its own restaurant concept. So really there's 4 other in-store dining options for the community to come here and visit. In terms of what types of materials we'll be using here, we will use materials that the Public Works Department can review, and they will approve as part of our development. They will be designed to manage the loads of these large semis and of any other traffic that is generated here, much like any other roads are designed and developed around the area. In terms of air quality and pollution, I do understand that that's a concern, but our trucks will not we'll have no idling signs. We have EV charging for all of the trucks. We have EV charging, and that's the way of the future. EV is the way of the future in the trucking industry. We also are right next to a very busy freeway that has, candidly, a tremendous amount of trucks and existing vehicles in the area. So our goal here is not to develop something or design something that is going to, in any way, shape, or form, detriment the community. We truly do build this and intend to build this with and as a benefit. And Councilwoman Kalman, I look forward to meeting you and working with you in the upcoming years here as Councilwoman to find other ways that we can develop projects that make a lot of sense for the community, as I have been doing for the last several years. For example, we're developing a hotel on Hospitality Lane. We're looking at multifamily opportunities within the city to develop what we call workforce housing. And we're really focused on other opportunities within the city. So I welcome that interaction. I know you're just newly appointed, and congratulations on that appointment. I just want to remind everyone that this project went through a full staff report, full analysis over 1.5 years. It went through a 7-0 approval, unanimous at Planning Commission. It went through a 5-2 council vote after a lengthy session of discussion 2 weeks ago, and was brought forward today at council as a consent item for simply the zone change, not necessarily the reapproval of the project. With that, I respect your comments and I appreciate your comments. I hope if there's any other concerns that we can address them as we work through the project. And also, last closing comment, our project is being entitled. We're not doing the construction drawings. We haven't done those yet. So if there's ways that we can meet with you, Councilwoman Kalman, if there's ways that we can meet with you and we can incorporate features, we would welcome that. You're local, you're in the community. If there's features that you feel, hey, have you guys thought about doing this? Have you thought about putting in, for example, a small play area for children or a rec area? We welcome that. We want that feedback because we want to develop something that the whole community can come to, shop at, dine at, eat at, convene at. This is a facility designed and built for the community. It also serves the truck drivers, the professional truck drivers who are in the area.
Okay, thank you, Council Member. The City Clerk, Councilman Figueroa, go ahead, sir.
I don't want to continue. Mr. Kodaki, everything you just said is pretty much some of the things that I wanted to highlight as well. But also remind folks earlier this year how important truckers became to, they started becoming identified as essential workers, how just for us to obtain some goods and services, and how difficult it became earlier this year just to obtain some of those goods. And so many comments and so many times that I heard that if you see a truck driver waiting by a restaurant, go over and offer some support, because maybe they can't even get into a restaurant, and offer them that support. And it almost seems like we've really forgotten some of that as well. But this seems like a great project, bringing in a lot of revenue. We just talked about, $1 million being a lot of money. And here we are potentially getting $1.1 million a year to our general fund. That would be a huge loss not to have. And Mr. Gadaki, like you said earlier, that we're not really bringing in new traffic. This is just the market adjusting to the existing traffic that already exists there. And so I think for that reason, it's just an empty dirt field where trucks are already congregating. It makes sense to provide that service that they're already congregating there for. This would be a great opportunity for families that are traveling to fuel up, to grab snacks, to grab food, whatever it is that they need for their road trip, and move forward. It just seems like a great opportunity for us.
Thank you, Councilmember. One of the other important facts, Mr. Kadaki, that I took note is the idling aspect of the parking of trucks. The state of California has high regulatory emission checks that govern idling of trucks, and in the last 10 years, there's been some modernization of that equipment that these truckers now must abide by. So with that in mind, we'll have final comments. I think we've had some good discussion, and we thank you. Councilmember Calvin, and then Councilmember Reynoso. I think I saw Councilmember Barr.
So we are here to serve the truckers, or we're here to serve the community members, the constituents of our city? That I'm a little confused right there, Councilman Figueroa.
About what specifically?
We're here to serve the truckers? Or are we here to serve, thinking about what's in the best interest of the constituents in our city?
We are here to serve a lot of the residents in our city who are also truckers, but who are dependent on this income to feed their families as well.
So we've done a survey as to how many families, how many trucker families we have in that area. I'm trying to understand, or in the city. So because you made them to be the priority, is what it sounded like to me. And from what I've been hearing and understanding, it's the constituents that we need to be serving and be mindful of what it is that they need. So I understand the industry, and yes, they need to have a truck stop. That does not mean that area, it's a large area, there's nothing there. It did not mean that because we have truckers illegally parking there, that a truck stop was the only development that we could bring to the city.
Councilman Reynoso, please.
Just a point of clarification to Councilmember Figueroa's statement. It's not a narrative of against the truckers. No one here is against truckers. I think that would be a far stretch to say that. What Councilwoman Calvin is, why she motioned to table, was because we did just come in. There's a lot of documents associated with it, and we're studied, we're researched. But if we don't know the full and have an opportunity to meet with someone like Mr. Kadakia, and we just come in and we're supposed to approve it, it looks negligent. And so I think that's the standpoint that Councilwoman Calvin's coming from, to just be responsible in this development and do and ensure some kind of protections for the people right there. I already voiced my concerns about the environmental impacts, and I'll follow up with Mr. Hunley to receive that and see how that is. But I just wanted to make that clear. No one on this council is against truckers. We're an e-commerce center. That would be ignorant. And so, yeah, thank you.
And I would also encourage all council members, if you're not doing so already, to take some time, carve some time to watch the Planning Commission. A lot of this information is on there. All the backup material for this item and all items that really come to the council are fully vetted and discussed at some of these commission meetings. All the backup material was available online from the previous agenda. There's nothing hidden here. There was nothing that was being kept from anybody. This is all fully available, just a few clicks away on the city website.
We call for the question.
Okay, council members, yeah, let's take a roll call. We're still in consent, folks. Ms. City Clerk, please call the roll. On the substitute motion.
Councilwoman Ibarra had her hand raised. You did call her. She hasn't been.
Councilmember Barra.
Just want to make a comment to my colleague, Councilmember Figueroa. I came from Orange County, where the 405 freeway kept getting expanded and expanded because of traffic. To this day, whoever is traveling on the 405 freeway in Orange County, they take hours to get from point A to point B because of the traffic. No matter how much we expand it, if we build it, they'll come. That's the common term. So we build a truck center, we're gonna get more truckers coming in, more congestion in that area. And I mentioned at the last meeting, there's only 2 lanes heading south on the 215, and that Kendall exit is only 1 lane going south. So yes, there has to be more work done there. That's I just want to share that insight from having come from Orange County and how the 405 kept getting built and homes were getting torn down instead.
Okay, council members, we are going to take a vote. There's been a substitute motion by Councilman Sanchez. Councilman Charette supports. We are voting on the floor motion and as written in the staff report for approval. The city clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
No.
Councilmember Figueroa? Sorry, I did not hear your vote.
Yes.
Councilmember Charette?
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso?
No.
Councilmember Calvin?
No.
Councilmember Alexander?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-3 with council members Ibarra, Reynoso, and Calvin voting in opposition.
Thank you very much. This item passes and will be a revenue generator. Congratulations, Mr. Kadakian. Thank you and welcome to San Bernardino. Moving on.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Moving on to our item number 14. Councilmember Ibarra, you pulled it. This item is item number 14 on our consent calendar. This is resolution approving a citywide salary schedule for employees.
Yes, and I've mentioned this before. My main concern is the budget. We haven't seen the actual figures, so for us to approve adjusting some of these salaries is something that should be waiting. We should be waiting on until we get the financials, actual financials, not word of mouth. I need to see the actual numbers. Thank you.
Okay,
So
I'll
make a motion that we pull this item until we see the financials for the 2021 year.
Second.
Until what? I'm sorry, Councilmember Ibarra.
Until we get the financial reports for 2021.
Well, that's not until next year.
Then until next year,
That's like February of 2020, March 2022. Is that your motion?
Why February 2022?
Well,
why not June or July 2021?
We don't close out the year until, we
just had the 1920, right?
Yeah, but we have unaudited. Are you asking for audited or unaudited reports?
Unaudited, it's fine. I need to see actual figures though.
Okay, all right. So it'd be about the same time.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So for your consideration tonight, it's an updated salary schedule only to update the salaries that would fall under the new minimum wage going into effect January 1. And the minimum wage increase was anticipated and accounted for in the current fiscal year budget. So there is no additional appropriation that is being requested this evening.
Move approval.
Second. Yeah, this is for the minimum wage. If I have any issue, it's going to be about us paying minimum wage. But what are we going to pay people less than minimum wage? We got to do this by January 1st. We're gonna have employees making less than minimum wage. We're gonna pay them under the table.
Okay.
By the way, that was in the staff report, but city clerk, call the roll on substitute motion.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra?
Just to clarify, substitute motion was mine?
No.
Motion is to go with
Councilmember Sanchez with Charette supporting.
Which is approving.
Correct.
That's recommendation.
What's your vote, Ms. Ibarra?
I'm still gonna vote no.
Very good. Please proceed, Ms. City Clerk.
Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes.
Councilmember Charette?
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso?
Yes.
Councilmember Calvin?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1 with Councilmember Ibarra voting in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Council member, we have one more item. We're still on our consent. Item number
Can I pull
8
17?
is approved. I have 18 as your poll, Mr. Reynoso. Is that your pleasure?
I'm sorry, is it too late to also pull 17? I meant to pull 17 as well.
Well, you can comment it. We've already voted on it, but go ahead.
Sure. For 17, I was just concerned about spending, although I agree it is the lowest bid for the reconstruction of the California Theater roof. I just feel like it's a little irresponsible unless it's about to cave in to spend $272,000 on doing a roof during a pandemic.
Okay.
That's my comments on 17.
Thank you. Councilmember Reynoso, you also pulled item number 18. Is approving the final track map number 20006. Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had some concerns about the tightness of the tracks. First off, the idea of the whole project, I just would like for them to redraw the maps. Is it possible? And legal counsel, Mike Huntley, Chris Jensen, you can answer this. Is it possible for them to redraw or repropose at this point the amount of homes that they intend to place there?
Chris?
You're muted.
Yeah.
You're still muted.
Chris, you're muted.
That's what happens when you're muted for 4 hours. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm actually going to defer to Sonia, our city attorney, Miss Sonia, to help us answer this question. My understanding is that where we are at in the process at this point, Councilmember Reynoso, is kind of the final step, and it's a ministerial act of the council. But I'll let Ms. Carvalho explain.
Thank you. And Mayor, council members, Councilmember Reynoso, as a track map, the California Subdivision Map Act applies to this action. When a landowner comes in to subdivide their property, they go through a pretty thorough process. At this point in the process, the action that the council is being asked to take, there is really no discretionary action. According to that state law, the Subdivision Map Act, they go through the Planning Commission level, they do their tentative work, and all of that has been completed at this time. These are just one of the very few times when the City Council is looking at the action to see if there's full compliance. You don't have discretion. Whether or not they could make a change is discretionary on their part. They could always come in and seek an amendment. But as I mentioned, and we can talk about this as we handle future items, but sometimes as a council members, you sit as legislators and you have a lot of discretion to make policy and make laws. And sometimes you guys sit in what we call quasi-adjudicative positions. You actually really sit more as judges. And when you sit in that capacity as judges, as you are here with this track map, your only action is to determine whether the map is met all the conditions that staff is representing to you, it has met. And so you have far less discretion.
So are we at, we'll be exposed to litigation potentially by asking them to redraw their track maps?
Yeah, I mean, as a courtesy, if it was something that council absolutely said, we just want to go back as a courtesy and see if they would be willing to do it, you can always go ask. But at some point, if they were to say this is what they want because of the Subdivision Map Act law, you would be in the position of having to approve it.
I make a motion to table till at least our next meeting in January so that I may have a chance to meet with the developer.
Just a question though before, are we going to be in any type of legal action if we table this any further down the line? City attorney?
I would actually ask staff where the developer is on this project. I'm, in my opinion, to ask a question about a project as a courtesy. I think on a one-time basis when you have brand new elected officials is probably, it's unusual but not out of line necessarily. But I would say that if that is not fruitful, I would very much encourage you to, as soon as you can, address this item and to approve the track map.
And if I may, Council, the the grading permit for this project has been issued. I know Councilmember Reynoso, you've probably seen work occurring out there. So they are moving forward based on everything, obviously, that they had anticipated for the final map at this point. But we're happy to see what we can do in asking that question for you.
Could I ask my colleague a question?
Go ahead, Councilman.
Councilmember Reynoso, I'd like to understand exactly what you're asking to do. It's scheduled to do 119 homes. Are you suggesting that they build fewer homes? Is that your ultimate intent?
I would like to see if that's a possibility, because reviewing it, it's going to be like slam packed. And I understand single family homes, and we do need more homes, absolutely, for young people to be able to afford. That's not my angle on this. But yeah, I just like to pick their brain a little bit. I'd like to learn about Rancho Palma LLC and see, you know, how amenable they are to the community responses to this, because people have concerns about that. And they, in the fifth, they kind of feel like it just happened, you know, like it's just already approved and they didn't have any say. And so my intention, obviously being elected as council, is to include those people. And if I have an opportunity, I don't want to put us in any space for litigation. Trust that, Councilman Charette. But I would just like to ask them if we could revisit it potentially to do just a few less homes, because they're like, right, 28 acres, 119 homes.
Well,
I might suggest that.
My only comment would be, in response to your comment, is that, and I'm not a developer, I'm not a home builder, but I've got a little experience with this, and I understand that these projects are worked on for many months and years, and they don't pencil. They pencil because of the number of units, and many times, if you even change it by a few units, it doesn't pencil out. So I guess your question hopefully will be a quick yes or no, yes we can do it, or no we can't do it, and then we'll just move forward. But
yeah, that's basically what I'm asking.
Councilman Reynoso, how about this? We understand that you want to meet with the developer. Are you amenable to at least continue this item to the next council meeting, Mr. Huntley? And what are there any escrow deadlines, or will the developer threaten pullout of the entire project to allow Mr. Reynoso a meeting with the developer?
Well, they're fully financial vested with this project, so that's why they're out there grading. This is a home builder who's come in. The initial developer actually put the entitlements together, and just to share with everyone tonight, this was a specific plan, and I know that people in the Vertimont area tend to be very concerned about new housing projects, and this one was vetted, and there was numerous community meetings to come to the point where they came to the subdivision and the number of units that are out there. And you know, I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from talking to them, I'm just making a comment. So with that, they are fully vested, they are moving forward. I think meeting with them would not be an issue, or talking to them. They are very eager to get started and move forward. And again, the only thing that we would need to check on is if the final map is going to expire, and this is why it needs to happen now. And that's the only one thing I can't answer. I'm not sure that Ms. Jensen can either tonight, but I know that they're, you know, fully financially vested. So
one of the other items, if I may, that is also based on the number of units in the development, we establish community facility districts, which are assessment districts that support public safety, as well as our maintenance efforts in that area. And the financials that are put together in terms of those assessments and all the things that go into those properties are also based on the units that are approved for building. So that's just another piece of information for consideration if we're talking about changing the number of units.
And
Well, I just want to make clear that
may I remind everybody that if we continue this to the next meeting, we did just approve not meeting the 7th. So that makes it the second meeting. So it's a little longer distance.
All right.
And I just wanted to clarify, Mayor, that the city council at this point does not have the legal discretion or authority to change the number of units. This is a ministerial action where the only action before the council is to determine whether the city engineer has represented to you full compliance with the tentative map conditions and all of those details. So your city staff is basically saying, here was the tentative map, and they have satisfied all the conditions that this city previously posed or put on them. So I just want to make certain that the council members understand you do not have any authority at this point in the game to reduce the number of units. And I think what I was hearing from the council member is a courtesy. He wanted to go speak with them.
Council member, thank you, Ms. City Attorney. Ms. City Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Council member Reynoso, is there a second on his motion?
No. There is no second on his motion.
Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
His motion was to table it or bring it back.
Hold on, Councilmember Barra.
I'll
Move
second
for
it.
approval on the floor motion, Mr. Charette?
Move approval, yes.
All right. Is there a second to Mr.
Second.
Charette? All right. There's a motion and a second to approve the track map. And Ms. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilmember Ibarra,
No.
Councilmember Figueroa,
Yes.
Councilmember Charette,
Yes.
Councilmember Reynoso,
No.
Councilmember Calvin,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2 with Councilmember Ibarra and Reynoso voting in opposition. Mayor, you're muted.
We've gone through our first consent as a team here. Thank you, council members. Items to be referred to committees.
No, we have items to be referred to a future agenda.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes. All right. I am very excited. I've been very nervous this whole time for this one item. I've been trying to get this passed for the last 2 years, and I think this is the time. I promised that I would bring this by the end of this calendar year, and what I'm going to need is the support of the council members to bring forward something that's been plaguing the city for a long time, and that is dedicate staff time for local campaign finance regulations, including limits on contributions by applicants and their agents during the permitting process. Number 2, limits on solicitation of contributions by electeds from applicants and their agents during the permitting process. And then finally, disclosure requirements for any contributions for a 12-month period prior to council action involving the contributor. That was submitted by me, and I'm hoping to get it on a future council meeting. What I want to do is I want to tell a little story. And I know we're limited on time, but I'm going to need the help of our city attorney. So, city attorney, if you can please tell me when an ordinance in our city has been violated or a campaign contribution law in the state or the federal government has been violated when I bring it up. So, to not offend anyone, I'll use myself as an example in this hypothetical. But we have a developer who comes into the city, has a project that isn't good at all. Somehow it made it through staff. It's a bad project. Nobody wants it. It's going to pollute the air. It's going to disturb the natural environment. It's a bad project for this city. And then I'm ready to vote against it, right? But the day of the council meeting, about half an hour before, someone walks up to me from the office or the company of that developer and says, "Hey, Mr. Sanchez, you're going to be running into some real opposition. There's a young man who's going to run against you in 2 years. He looks like Mr. Councilmember Ben Reynoso, speaks like Councilmember Damon Alexander. He's going to beat you, and we're almost sure of it. But in this city, usually the candidate who raises the most money wins that election. So, you know, here's a check. Half an hour before this council meeting when we're going to decide whether this project moves forward or not. And gives me a little check. There's $4,500 for your campaign so that you can win, all right? And there's more where that came from, all right? And then I go ahead at that council meeting and vote for that developer, vote for that project, a project that's going to harm the city, for whatever project, right? It's a chemical plant or a whatever you want to call it. We need to get rid of that. It's a serious problem here in our city. What I want disclosures. People, and I was inspired by the speeches I heard earlier today from our newly seated council members. We work for the people who live and work and invest in this city, and we need to make sure that we put them first. But when we have our backs against the wall and we have challengers, sometimes we feel like we need to take money, and sometimes it's, in many ways, it's the unspoken quid pro quo. And what's the worst part about it is that there's no law against it. Sonia, have I described anything that is against a city ordinance or against campaign finance?
Campaign contributions are legal and they do not count towards sources of incomes for purposes of creating a conflict of interest under the California Political Reform Act.
So I've been trying to get this passed for 2 years, and I think we have a council now that might be willing to move forward with this. I'm really nervous because I've been fighting for it tooth and nail. And look, this isn't going to solve every last problem, but it goes a long way to really expose maybe where some of the
order is this possibly a Brown Act violation? He's lobbying for something that maybe is going to be voted on in future, and I think you've made your point. You want to get something on, but
yes, it's an item on the agenda. It's an item on the agenda.
It's an item that we're going to all be voting on, and he's just lobbied the entire council to vote in favor of it. I'd call it a Brown Act violation.
Yes, I did. No, I don't see how.
Ms. City Attorney, would you please opine?
Well, you're not taking action on it. It is an item that is on your agenda. I'd like to remind the council that the question to be asked, however, is not whether you approve this item, not whether you're approving the details, but do you want to approve sending this to staff to prepare the necessary ordinances as outlined on your agenda? So for campaign contribution limits on contributions by applicants, limits on solicitation, and disclosure requirements. If the council would like us to do that, then we need 4 votes to prepare the necessary documents.
Yeah, that's, I guess I got a little off topic, but if you think my story is morally wrong, I hope you will support this. We can hash out the details. This is nothing more than an item on the agenda to if we vote in favor of it, if a majority of the council vote in favor of it, the staff will then have direction to really invest the time and the resources they need to bring something before the council for approval. But that wouldn't, again, we're not really hashing out the details right now. So I hope I can get the support. That would be my motion to have staff work on this.
Staff, I'd also like.
Are we debating this, whether it should pass or whether it should go forward or not? I mean,
no, the agenda.
No, but we're going to vote on something.
Yes.
No.
We're going to vote to move it forward. This is not right. I'm not sure where it's wrong, but it's not right.
Councilman Charette, thank you. I also would like staff to look at violations of Statement 700s. There are multiple occurrences in our city that I believe are inconsistent and incompatible with the Statement 700 from actual sitting members. So staff, thank you, and you have direction. Ms. City Attorney, do we need a move for approval on this, or?
I would, and I am going to ask the city manager maybe for his input. This would involve the staff time, some city clerk input, and city attorney time. So I don't know if the city manager would like to see a vote on that, so we know there is majority support to at least move it forward.
Well, it's not, I mean, I don't think the investment of time and money is going to be that extensive. It's somewhat clear to me, fairly clear to me, what Councilmember Sanchez is asking for. So yeah, I think it's really at the council's discretion if they would like us to come back with a staff report on this, so that the council can consider it, can debate it in a something closer to a finished format, not unlike the earlier discussion on the nuisance abatement program. I mean, so I don't see it being a significant enough burden to create a problem, a budget problem, or a staff time problem.
No, I guess what I'm asking is, do you want them to take a vote on moving the item forward, or are you okay with just a consensus? That's what I'm asking.
Consensus is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Rob, be clear on the staff report. We should also clearly identify conflicts of interest and Statement 700 violations as well.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Councilman Sanchez. Council members, I'm sorry. Councilman Figueroa, then Councilmember Alexander. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to recognize, actually, just real quickly, two businesses in the city that I really love. Casa de Flores and Joey's Diner were recently recognized by the Assembly Majority Leader, Eloise Gomez Reyes. And this has definitely been a very difficult year for a lot of our small businesses, for a lot of people in our city. And I would hope, it's been some time since we've recognized a Citizen of the Month or Business of the Month. I don't really understand why we stopped doing it. And I would really like to see that make it back to the agenda. I think we should be recognizing Citizens of the Month and businesses as well. I would really like to see that back on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Alexander, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. What I would like to have referred to agenda item is our city website. It's outdated. It needs to be updated. It is the face of the city. I try to bring stuff that is, if we want to be called a first-class city and elevate ourselves eloquently around the region, we need to update our website with our various council members' photographs, our executive directors' photographs, things that other cities currently do. I'm just asking for the small things that we may step up our image and our professionalism. So if we can bring that about, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Field, couldn't that just be handled administratively? What say you on that opportunity to update our website and improve that outreach opportunity?
Actually, I guess I need to get clarification from Councilman Alexander. Are you looking at a complete replacement or an update? I mean, I think
no replacement, just update to where we are now, to get rid of some of our outdated information that's on there. Like I said, various cities have their commissions and who they contact. You right now, if someone you don't live here, but if someone in our city wanted to contact their Parks and Rec commissioner, they have no idea who they are. They have no way to reach them. How are they supposed to reach the people that we appoint if they're not even on the website? So that's the kind of stuff. How are they supposed to know, just like any other website and any other city has all their executive directors' photographs on there? I'm trying to get us to go to a different level, on a very basic level, if you understand what I'm saying.
Fair enough. Then yeah, we can do it administratively.
When would that be done, sir?
Well, let me get back. I'm going to have to consult with our information technology group. We'll get back to you.
So before the next meeting?
In terms of the actual fixes?
Right.
I'm really going to need to talk to our IT group. We have a very, very small information technology staff, and we've had some impacts there from COVID and other things. So let me get back to you.
And you're going to get back to me. I'm going to get back to person like a date or something like that.
Well, we will get back to you with a date.
Thank you.
Okay, council members, we appreciate council members' contribution tonight. Thank you. We wish all of our constituents and residents and businesses a Merry Christmas. And this has been a difficult year for us all. COVID impacts the health and safety of our city is still of paramount concern. We have updates regularly on the COVID-19 website here at our city's webpage. We encourage our visitors and residents to avail themselves of that opportunity to constantly be refreshed of that. In the meantime, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This meeting is, we're recessing into closed session and we'll return thereafter and adjourn. At this time, we will now be moved into our meeting room for closed session.
Councilmember Calvin,
Here.
Councilmember Alexander,
Here.
and Mayor Valdivia.
Thank you. Yes. Moving on to our Arrowhead Lodge. At this time, we'll excuse all staff members who are not material to tonight's presentation. We'll invite council on Arrowhead